Hey everyone. In response to the attacks in Israel-Palestine, I wanted to make a report that provides important context that is almost never mentioned in the mainstream corporate media. And yet we cannot understand this conflict without these basic facts. First of all, in Gaza, there are 2.3 million Palestinians living under an illegal Israeli blockade. Israel controls everything that enters and leaves Gaza. This is an open air prison. Even the former British Prime Minister referred to this as an open air prison. This has gone on for 16 years and it's completely illegal. Secondly, according to international law, Palestinians have a legal right to armed resistance. Today, I'm going to look through the letter of the law. I'm going to look at United Nations resolutions that show clearly that Palestinians have a right to armed resistance against Israeli colonialism. And three, Israel is a colonial apartheid regime. It used to be controversial to say this, but it no longer is. Even mainstream Western human rights organizations like Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch and UN bodies have acknowledged that Israel is committing a crime against humanity by carrying out a system of apartheid against the Palestinian people. These are all very important facts. I'm going to go through the evidence today from mainstream sources showing this, and yet this context is almost always omitted from mainstream corporate media coverage of Israel-Palestine, which always portrays attacks by Palestinians as illegitimate, or the US government claims the attacks are unprovoked, which is completely absurd. Now, because I'm doing this video on YouTube, and YouTube is notorious for censoring videos about Israel-Palestine that criticize Israeli apartheid, I do have to be a little careful with some of the language and the terms I use. Every time I do a video about Israel-Palestine, the YouTube algorithm always prevents people from seeing it, really pushes down the numbers. And of course, this very censorial environment prevents me as a journalist from being able to fully explain everything in detail. But here are the basic facts that you should know. First of all, the conflict in Israel-Palestine is not about religion. A lot of Western analysts try to portray this as a religious conflict between Muslims and Jews. First of all, there are many Palestinian Christians as well. It's not religious, but this is a lazy analysis. In reality, this is a conflict about national liberation and self-determination. This is also similar to the very lazy and misleading analysis that blames the violence in Northern Ireland on religion. It's not a religious conflict. It's a conflict about colonialism, of Irish nationalists resisting British colonialism so they can unify Ireland, which is partially occupied by British colonialism. It's not a conflict between Catholics and Protestants. Now, because this is a struggle of national liberation and one nation tends to be largely Catholic and one tends to be largely Protestant, people try to map it religiously, but in fact, it is fundamentally a political conflict like the conflict in Israel-Palestine. It is a conflict about colonialism. Israel as a state was born out of European colonialism. Theodor Herzl, the father of the modern political Zionist movement, which called for the creation of a Jewish state in Palestinian Arab territory, he wrote a letter to the infamous British colonialist Cecil Rhodes, who got rich stealing the natural resources of Africa. And in fact, he had an entire colony named after him, Rhodesia, which is modern-day Zimbabwe. In this letter to Cecil Rhodes, Herzl said that his plan for creating an Israeli state was, quote, something colonial. He referred to it as a European-style colony, which is what it was. And then in 1917, the British Empire issued the Balfour Declaration, in which the British Empire officially endorsed the creation of a European-style colonial Jewish state in Palestinian territory. Again, this is at the peak of the British Empire. Israel has always been a colonial project. Then in 1948, militias from the Zionist movement, which sought to create an Israeli state, they ethnically cleansed hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, kicking them off their homelands in what is known as the Nakba. And today, there are now millions of Palestinians in the diaspora who do not have the right to go back to their homeland. This led to the creation of an entire United Nations agency called UNRWA, the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees. And today they have 6 million Palestinian refugees registered. Again, they're not able to return to their homeland because of Western-backed Israeli colonialism. Then in 1967, Israel occupied the West Bank, which is where still millions of Palestinians today live under an illegal apartheid regime of occupation, military occupation by Israeli forces. Israel also occupied Syria's sovereign territory of the Golan Heights, which remains illegally militarily occupied by Israel. And today we're going to be talking about Gaza. Israel also occupied the Gaza Strip near Egypt, and Israel has maintained a suffocating blockade of Gaza. In 2022, UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund, published a report on the humanitarian impact of 15 years of the Israeli blockade of the Gaza Strip. And there are a lot of very inconvenient facts in here that I want to go through because, again, they're almost never mentioned in the mainstream corporate media. UNICEF notes that the Israeli blockade was imposed on Gaza in 2007. So now it has been 16 years of a blockade. And this is not just a land blockade. It is also a sea blockade and an air blockade. Israel controls everything that goes in and out of the territory. Gaza has no sovereignty. As UNICEF puts it, Israel has significantly exacerbated previous restrictions, limiting the number and specified categories of people and goods allowed in and out through the Israeli-controlled crossings. Israeli forces have largely restricted access to areas within 300 meters of the Gaza side of the perimeter fence with Israel. So they've surrounded Gaza with a massive fence. And whenever Palestinians protest inside Gaza, Israeli snipers shoot them, including not only peaceful protesters, but also medics, also journalists. The United Nations investigated and found that Israel intentionally shot and in many cases killed Palestinian medics and journalists during massive protests over months in Gaza in 2018 as part of the Great March of Return. UNICEF also pointed out that Israeli forces restrict access off the Gaza coast, currently only allowing fishermen to access 50% of the fishing waters that were allocated to them under the Oslo Accord. So again, violating these agreements that Israel signs. Furthermore, the unemployment rate in Gaza is one of the highest in the entire world, 46.6%. Nearly half of Gazans do not have a job. Among youth, it's even more outrageous. Nearly two-thirds, 62.5% of youth in Gaza do not have a job because Israel prevents them from having an economy. 1.3 million out of 2.1 million Palestinians in Gaza, that is 62%, require food assistance. And that number, by the way, has increased because the estimate's now around 2.3 million Palestinians. And there's only one power plant in Gaza, and Israel constantly bombs it, destroying it, which means that the only capacity that it can reach is 50% of the electricity demand in Gaza, which means that there are rolling power cuts and they average 11 hours a day. So basically, if you live in Gaza, you only have electricity half the time. Meanwhile, nearly 80% of piped water in Gaza is unfit for human consumption, and Israel constantly bombs the water treatment plant, which prevents Palestinians from having water to survive. This is why figures even like the conservative former Prime Minister of the UK, David Cameron, have admitted that Gaza is an open-air prison. This should not be a controversial statement. It is an open-air prison camp with 2.3 million Palestinians trapped under an Israeli blockade. This is one of the most densely populated regions of the world, and yet they're treated like cattle. They're not treated like human beings. In fact, documents from Israel's defense ministry prove that Israel controlled the amount of food that can be imported into Gaza in order to, quote, put Palestinians on a diet, to control their access to food. This was reported on a decade ago in the Guardian newspaper, and they say very clearly, this is, the establishment British mouthpiece, they say, quote, the Israeli military made precise calculations of Gaza's daily calorie needs, according to files the Defense Ministry released. Israel also maintained a list of foods that were permitted and banned from Gaza. Israel calculated the calorie needs for Gaza's population so as to restrict the quantity of food it allowed in. And a diplomatic cable released by WikiLeaks, which is why the journalist Julian Assange is in prison and is facing life in prison. WikiLeaks published a U.S. diplomatic cable that it quoted Israeli diplomats as saying they wanted to, quote, keep Gaza's economy on the brink of collapse. And a human rights organization inside Israel called Gisha said, quote, the official goal of the policy was to wage economic warfare, which would paralyze Gaza's economy. And as an example of the restrictions that Israel imposes, it prevents Palestinians from importing things like coriander and instant coffee. I mean, preventing them from having a basic, dignified life. This is why it is absolutely correct to say that Palestinians in Gaza are living in an open-air prison camp. And because of that, according to international law, they have a legal right to armed resistance. This is spelled out very clearly by the United Nations. There is no ambiguity. And this was stated very clearly in a United Nations General Assembly resolution from 1980, which is Resolution 35/35. The resolution, quote, reaffirms the legitimacy of the struggle of peoples for independence, territorial integrity, national unity, and liberation from colonial and foreign domination and foreign occupation by all available means, including armed struggle. Armed struggle, they emphasize that. And specifically, they're discussing, quote, the continued violations of the human rights of the people still under colonial and foreign domination. And in particular, they mention, quote, the denial to the Palestinian people of their inalienable national rights. So by mentioning the Palestinian people, they're making it very clear. Palestinians have a right to resist colonial domination, the Israeli domination and occupation, quote, by all available means, including armed struggle. Later on, the same resolution strongly condemns all governments which do not recognize the right to self-determination and independence of all peoples still under colonial and foreign domination, and specifically names the Palestinian people, along with several peoples in Africa, because, of course, this was a resolution also condemning apartheid in Africa, which I'll be speaking about in a moment. But it also, this UN General Assembly resolution, quote, condemns the expansionist activities of Israel in the Middle East, as well as the continuous bombing of civilian Arab and in particular Palestinian populations and the destruction of their villages. This is a resolution that was passed in November 1980. And for decades, Israel has continued bombing and blockading and occupying Palestinian territory, displacing Palestinians, bulldozing their homes, starving them. This has gone on.
Only a week ago, videos circulated showing Israeli settlers invading and desecrating Al-Aqsa Mosque, spitting on Christians in Jerusalem, and proclaiming their hatred of all Arabs. Only a week ago, Saudi Arabia was set to normalize relations with Israel, which would have made it the latest and most influential Arab country to normalize relations with the self-proclaimed Jewish state. A week ago, Israel thought it had finally snuffed out the flame of Palestinian resistance. But on Saturday, the Palestinians boldly declared that Zionism will never win. The unprecedented military operation launched by a broad coalition of Palestinian resistance factions has completely turned the Israeli calculus on its head. Palestinians have begun the process of taking back the land that was stolen from them 70 years ago, and protesters have gathered here in Times Square to show their support for the Palestinian resistance.
The Palestinian resistance shocked the world when it launched Operation Al-Aqsa Flood, a wave of simultaneous attacks on all fronts of the Israeli occupation. The attack took everyone by surprise, most of all the Israelis, as videos showed Palestinian fighters walking through unmanned military checkpoints and tearing down massive border fences without facing any opposition. Palestinians captured several Israeli vehicles, dozens of Israeli soldiers, killed several high-ranking officers, and took over entire cities. Videos showed resistance fighters hang-gliding themselves into Israel using massive fans. As of the time of this recording, some speculate that Palestinians have liberated an area almost twice the size of the Gaza Strip and appear to be aiming to reconnect the West Bank and Gaza. The Lebanese resistance have also since joined the fight, launching artillery strikes into an Israeli outpost occupying land in southern Lebanon. The operation has not only exposed massive flaws in Israel's supposedly airtight intelligence services, but also showed the ironclad discipline within the Palestinian military command, who were able to keep secret the operation, which presumably took months of planning.
Every Israeli official said it was a complete surprise. And I think we have to sit with that, because as of just a couple days ago, they said that surprise wasn't possible. They said we control every inch of Palestine. They said we have walls, we have cameras, yes, we have traitors too, and there's nothing they can do that we won't see or what we do. They were so arrogant.
In response to this humiliating offensive, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu responded in the only way Israel has ever known how: carpet bombing Gaza. While the media would have you believe that this conflict started 48 hours ago and that it was initiated by the Palestinians, this conflict actually began over a century ago, with the birth of the Zionist movement, a movement of European Jews who aimed to create a Jewish majority state in Palestine. With help from the British Empire, the Zionists massacred their way through Palestinian villages, kicking the indigenous Arabs out and moving European Jews in, establishing the State of Israel. This was the only way the reality-defying concept of a Jewish-only state in the heart of the Arab world could be created, through outright ethnic cleansing. After its founding, Israel turned Palestine into a virtual prison state out of fear of a mass Palestinian uprising. In the West Bank, Arabs live as second-class citizens under a completely different set of laws as Jews. Palestinians are relegated to Arab-only roads and Arab-only schools. Palestinians have one kind of ID while Jews have another. Palestinians have to request permission to travel virtually anywhere and have to wait in long and humiliating checkpoints that can turn a 10-minute drive into a 4-hour nightmare. Palestinian homes are routinely demolished for no reason to make way for an ever-expanding network of Jewish settlements housing Jews who have never even set foot in Palestine. But things are even worse in Gaza. The Gaza Strip, an area spanning only 140 square miles, is home to 2 million Palestinians. As the most densely populated piece of land on Earth, Gaza has widely been described as an open-air prison. This is because Israel doesn't let anyone in or out. Anyone who tries to cross the border is shot. Anyone who goes too far out into the water is shelled. Israel controls everything that goes in and out of Gaza, even food. One Israeli politician famously remarked that Israel's policy is to keep Gazans on a diet. 95% of Gaza's water is undrinkable. Israel also controls Gaza's electricity and regularly weaponizes it against Gaza, most recently yesterday, aiming to crush Gaza's already crippled hospital infrastructure. Gaza's unemployment rate also sits just under 50%. Israel regularly bombs hospitals in Gaza, most recently yesterday. Residential apartment buildings are fair game. They bomb schools, use illegal white phosphorus munitions. As a result of all of this, people in Gaza don't live very long. The median age in Gaza is 18, and there's a crisis of suicidality among Gazan youth. Israel murders peaceful Palestinians every single day, and now the politicians, corporate media pundits, and Pentagon warmakers who never batted an eye at the daily atrocities of the Israeli regime are trying to convince you that the Palestinians are the violent ones. The Palestinians aren't randomly attacking Israel. They're breaking out of prison. Palestinians have been prisoners of the Israeli occupation for 75 years. and are now ripping their cages apart bar by bar. They're avenging generations of ancestors who were expelled from their homes and died without ever seeing their land again. It's about the intentional desecration of holy sites, the imprisonment of their children, and the free pass given Israel as it tramples international law. Operation Al-Aqsa Flood wasn't months in the making. It was 75 years in the making. Every empire believes that it can crush its enemies into submission. Israel always thought its military superiority would protect it. But Operation Al-Aqsa Flood has shown them that as long as the occupation stands, they'll never be safe. This fight was never about superior arms. As soon as things got tough this weekend, Israelis went to the airport in droves and left the country they so adamantly insist belongs to them. The Palestinians, on the other hand, can't leave. They are home, and they don't know any other home. Today also happens to be Indigenous Peoples Day, and it's worth looking back at that history when we think about Palestine. In the historic resistance to try to take back their land from illegal settlers who were intent on massacring their people, destroying their culture, and permanently expelling them, Native forces also sometimes conducted raids that killed people, even women and children. But looking backward, is there any confusion about who was on the side of justice? Is there any confusion that the whole colonial occupation was the real crime and the real source of violence? Israel wants us to think that it'll last forever, but it's still a young state, younger than my own Jewish dad. It's not invincible, and the Al-Aqsa Flood proves it. Maybe that's why Palestinians tug at the heartstrings of the world, because they defy all odds, redefining what's possible for all of us. They remind us that when will and belief, rooted so firmly in justice, are combined, no army on earth can stop it.
They have failed!
All of us saw the videos on social media of children in cages in Gaza, of Jewish bodies, of a teenage girl being abused in front of a crowd and people cheering, of bodies being paraded around in trucks. So to say that Israel is at fault for that is just perverse. And then if you look at the history of the region, anybody who believes that narrative, which is a propaganda narrative, should go look at Prince Bandar bin Sultan's speech in 2020. He was a great champion. He was the head of the Saudi intelligence. He was at all the peace negotiations. He's a huge champion, lifelong champion of the Palestinian people. And what he said again and again, the Palestinians have been betrayed by their leadership. Yasser Arafat died a billionaire. Mahmoud Abbas, the current leader of the Palestinian Authority, is a billionaire. His sons are 100 millionaires. They keep their people in poverty. Again and again, the Israelis have offered peace on extremely generous terms. The Ehud Barak in 2000 offered again and again, 1937, 1947, 2000. The Israelis have wanted to trade peace for land. And they, again and again, the Palestinian leadership has betrayed its own people by refusing to even negotiate about that or refusing to a counteroffer.
Welcome to a very, very special edition of the Propaganda Report with Nick and CJ. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin'? My friends, my family, welcome back. It's been one hell of the last few days, hasn't it? Anyone else feel like screaming? Anyone else feel like screaming? Corporate media have been completely unbearable.
I can't even watch it. I can't watch it at all. I can't watch
Yeah,
it
me
at
neither.
all.
Me neither. We told you guys we analyze corporate propaganda. I find it fascinating the way they lie to people, like almost like a science. I study it that way.
Yeah.
I can't even do that on this issue. It's too gross, man. You had Joe Scarborough had more. He had Ron DeSantis on, the guy he complains about every day, and they were just chumming it up about genociding Palestinians. Fam, we live in the craziest times. There is a mass genocidal psychosis that's taken over the West right now. I remember being young and seeing this same psychosis take over the American people with 9/11.
Yeah.
And you think about how do people allow the Holocaust to happen? How do people allow the Black Codes to happen? How do people allow the slaughter of indigenous people to happen? This mass genocidal psychosis that we are seeing from the West should scare the shit out of everybody. Like, this shit is increasing my anxiety watching the West, who already lost their mind, further double down on their genocidal approach. Anyone, CJ, who resists their capitalist colonial project, they want dead. You have people on corporate media, all the Western leaders, they are cheering for the genocide. Nikki Haley said, finish them. Every Western politician calling for the final solution against Palestinians. Every single one of them. They want the Russians dead. They want the Chinese dead. They want the Venezuelans dead. They want the Iranians dead. And now they're cheering the genocide of Palestinians. And people in the West going on like nothing going on. Hey, what are you watching on Netflix, man? Yeah, Hulu. That shit's dope, isn't it? I watch like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, I am obsessed with this shit. We are watching completely. We're watching this society completely go insane.
Is there another story, Nick? Is there? I didn't know it was another story, Nick. Literally, Nick, I wake up the last 2 days. There is not a different story in my feed, sir. I scrolled through the feed. There is not a single different story, but to your point, and I thought I was the only one that had this react. It is nauseating.
Yeah.
I literally I can't watch past 2 minutes. I'm like, what are you saying about what's happening here? Like, and I must say this. It is, to me, and we've said this, and you were alluding to this, it is not, we can't let this moment go past with the framing that the United States is like vigorously shoving down our throat. It's not a light push. They're vigorously shoving down our throat. You have to ask your question, why? What's unique about the United States? Could it be that they're seeing like a young child? Oh, this is what I was when I was young. Look at this country doing what I did. Look at how beautiful it is. This is my child. They almost see it as an offspring, and that's actually what it is. If you think about how this is really a British colonial project, in the same sort of same sort of lane as the United States as a colonial project. So all of these atrocities, Nick, is seen as needed in order for us to make this turn to complete this colonial settler project of Israel. It's needed to eradicate all sort of radicalness against us. United States, didn't they do that with Malcolm X? Did they kill? How many radicals have they killed in order to turn the corner, Nick? Where it's like we finally can rest and without any fear of retribution of this colonial project. And it feels like that's maybe where Israel felt like this surprise attack that it caught them off guard. And maybe they felt like, oh, well, maybe we finally oppressed and repressed the Gaza Strip and Palestinians enough to where they're finally not going to fight back. And they were wrong. And I just wish that was the same here in the United States.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people that are oppressed. But go ahead.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those shows where there's no way I'm getting through all the receipts. I already know that's not going to happen, CJ. But we do the best that we can. There's so much to discuss. so much propaganda. We were talking about this with Mark Kimberly. The amount of propaganda that we've seen since the start of the Ukraine war has been intense. But now when you add the Palestinian-Israeli conflict now, where the Western media is completely erasing the fact that Israelis slaughtered Palestinian civilians. And then Israel now responding, openly admitting they committed genocide, openly admitting they're committing a war crime, pretty much having a blockade on fuel, food, electricity. That's a war crime. Now everyone's cheering for it, right? So isn't it funny that we know they're going to do the genocide against Palestinian people that's already underway? Millions of people. And I saw a quote from this Palestinian social media guy where he said, he's from Gaza. He's like, we don't think we're going to make it. Like, this is it. He said, he was talking about how electricity was just cut. This is it. We don't think we're going to survive this. So as Israel's committing a genocide, Biden had a statement where he affirmed his support for Netanyahu's statement of genocide against the Palestinian people. So isn't it funny, fam? The same people who was pushing war against China over a fake genocide of Muslims, the same genocide that has been debunked by not only multiple Western journalists and from different countries, but Trump's own State Department couldn't find evidence of anything that constitutes genocide in China. People went crazy over this, CJ. Now you had Netanyahu announce the genocide of Muslims in Gaza, and now they're cheering for it. Weaponized hypocrisy, ladies and gentlemen, is the highest form of corruption. Repeat after me. The Palestinians are the only people that are in compliance with international law. Israel has never been in compliance with international law. Their siege and their genocide they are doing right now is illegal. Palestine has the right, according to the UN Charter, to resist their armed colonizers and occupiers using armed resistance. There is no legal, there is no moral, and there is no intellectual argument for Israel. Do you guys understand? Palestinians have a right to armed resistance as long as they're compliant with international law. And people are like, well, Nick, what about the Palestinians targeting civilians? See what they say? They're targeting civilians. And I am willing to ask anyone who want to debate me on this, what the fuck are you talking about when you say Israeli civilian? And I'm legitimately asking that question. What is an Israeli citizen? Do you guys understand that Israel, and I'm going to bring you in, Dan Cohen. I appreciate you joining a little bit earlier. We have a fantastic guest for you guys. Do you guys understand that Israel is a militarized police state where every single person has to have its mandatory military service? Let
me insert here because I know a person. Let me insert here. Go. No, I was just going to say to this point that before I dated my wife, I dated an Israeli girl who, when she went back to Israel, she came here trying to avoid this very thing, Nick.
Yes, I'm not getting to
that. She went back to visit. She was arrested. I had no idea what happened to her. Just all of a sudden, the communication stopped. 9 months later, she finally was able to. I was in prison this whole time.
See, that's crazy. You actually knew someone who was a victim.
I knew somebody that happened to. Yes.
This is something that we all follow if you actually care about this issue until last week, right? This is why I don't accept the fucking claim of Israeli citizens. You are willing participants of colonialism and genocide. Every Israeli citizen is forced to participate in genocide, CJ. Every single one of them. And if you do not, you get sent to prison and they lock you in a cage. Let me repeat, Israel locks you in a cage if you don't commit to ethnic cleansing and genocide. Meanwhile, y'all here talking about Israeli citizens. Here's a headline here. Young Israelis imprisoned for refusing to serve in the IDF. Now, those people I will criticize Palestinian resistance for going after. Now, those are the people that we should have solidarity with, right? But not anyone who benefits from the Israeli settler colonial regime. And I know what some people saying. I already see a few right-wing
we
people
love
that
you
cope in
here.
the chat. People cope in the chat. What
Welcome.
about the children, Nick? You mean the human shields used by the Israeli regime? Now, the children are victims in both situations. But guess what? The children in Gaza can't leave. The parents are complicit with dragging their children into this violent settler colonial project. There is nothing that making them do that. So Israelis are using their children as human shields. Understand, Gaza has no choice. They have no choice, CJ, where the fuck they go.
Yeah, they can't go nowhere.
Israeli put their children here, and then they're like, oh my God, Palestinians go after our children. And then the media ignore the fact that they go after Palestinian children. So the terms of engagement was already set by Israel, fam. So the children are victims, every single one of them. But that's why the anger goes towards the Israelis, fam, the Zionists, because the Zionism is a failed project. The project and the idea of Zionism was to have a safekeeping place for Jews, where you can be safe as a Jew. There's nowhere that is least safe right now for Jewish people than Israel. Then Israeli children die because the failure of the Israeli Zionist project, and then they blame Palestinians and people who the settler colonialists violated. So the same way they accuse people in Gaza of using human shields when they can't fucking leave, when they're one of the most densely populated areas on the planet, probably the most densely populated. And then the Palestinians are using human shields even though they can't go anywhere. If anyone's using human shields, it's Israel. But I want to introduce my guest, because Dan, I know you chime in to get in here. I got a lot to say. Like, CJ, this is gonna be one of them weeks.
This is a lot. This is a big issue for us. This is a big issue for us, especially. I can see Nick, man. I woke up. I had 7 tweets already in my feed from Nick. Welcome, Dan Cohen. Welcome back, sir. It's been a long time. Happy to see you, sir.
Good to be with you guys. Despite the circumstances, I mean, thanks a lot for having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And like I said on the show earlier this week, things are so crazy, and especially as someone who's been following this issue for a long time. We pretty much call it the cavalry. Like, there's no way we can cover this issue on our own. I want to bring as many people who've been following this issue as possible, especially over the next few weeks, CJ. That's why we had Fiorella Isabel on earlier this Monday. We had Q Anthony Amene on as well. Expect much more guests that we're going to have on to discuss this crazy ass issue, crazy ass shit that we're going through right now. So with that said, just to get us warmed up, I was pretty fired up to begin this stream. I want to get your general take on this mass genocidal psychosis. This is what I wrote about earlier on Twitter today. I'm glad it's catching fire online right now, because it's absolutely batshit crazy time that we live in. So just before we get started, we got live receipts, and I would love for you to respond to some of the receipts we're going to show you. But before that, what are your general take on the mindset you've seen from the West, from the propaganda and the Israeli genocidal campaign against the Palestinians?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to say. I think, looking at, first of all, I mean, I should, so people understand who I am, my experience. I spent basically 3 years in Palestine, in Israeli society, Palestinian society, from 2014 to 2017. So I know Israeli and Palestinian society intimately. I know Gaza intimately. I spent, like I said, 7 months there making a documentary called Killing Gaza. I made that with Max Blumenthal. And, you can find that on YouTube. It's free now. Or if you want to pay $5 for it, you can go to killinggaza.com. So, I have very intimate knowledge of these places, of these societies, of the kind of psychological profiles of different kinds of people. Israel has been, of course, increasingly right-wing, but it doesn't just get increasingly right-wing forever. In the last year or so, 2 years, Netanyahu has brought in an apocalyptic right wing to the fore. And when I say apocalyptic, I mean that they firmly believe they want to create war in order to accomplish their nationalist goals. of they want to force the Messiah to come down. They basically took the logic of Jewish messianism, which was always that the Messiah will come at some undetermined time, but only God will make it happen, and we have to be passive. And they said, no, we have to do that. And when God comes, there will be a great war and all these things when the Messiah comes. And so that's what religious Zionism is the idea that we actually have to make this war happen, this end times prophecy happen. And so Netanyahu has surrounded himself with these people over really the last few decades since the 90s. I mean, Yitzhak Rabin, the prime minister of Israel, was killed by one of them. And it wasn't that someone was, the guy who killed him, Yigal Amir, was crazy. He didn't lose his mind. He was acting on specific instructions. And they said because Rabin was having negotiations to create the Oslo Accords, which would basically put Palestinians in their own little Bantustans in the West Bank and in Gaza, that was grounds to murder him. And so that's what they did. And Netanyahu came to power on the back of that anti-Oslo, anti-Rabin sentiment. He even participated in mock funerals for Rabin ahead of his assassination. So since the 90s, really, Netanyahu has rode this fanatical right-wing wave to power, to stay in power. And in order to stay in power, he, in the last couple of years, made an outright alliance with the Kahanists. The Kahanists are followers of Rabbi Meir Kahane, the Brooklyn-born FBI informant who worked for the FBI basically to rat out anti-Vietnam War protesters and kill Soviets and agitate against black populations in New York City, particularly in Crown Heights. Then he brought his brand of hatred to Israel, and he became a member of Knesset. He was assassinated in the early 90s, but his legacy, his ideology has become extremely popular, overwhelmingly popular. And one of his acolytes is Itamar Ben-Gvir, who is now the internal security minister in Israel and the most popular politician for the right wing, which is, most people. The liberals don't like him, but now they're all rallied together. So this fanatical ideology that, it's not like we don't want war, it's that we do want war. And the way we're going to win against all of these Arab countries is we're going to start a war, and then God is going to intervene. The Messiah is going to come down, and that's how we're going to win. It's not going to be because of the United States military backing us or anything like that. So that is the kind of apocalyptic, genocidal ideology pulsing through Israeli society. And not all of Israeli society subscribes to it, but that's kind of the vanguard of Israeli society.
Yeah, I just saw videos of people in Israel protesting against the bombing in Gaza. Maybe I can search Twitter and find it real quick. I don't have it saved, but Netanyahu's police state is already beating his own civilians, quote unquote civilians, for protesting the bombing of Gaza. And I just showed some few receipts to talk about what you mentioning the rise of the Likud party. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly.
Likud has been around for a long time. The Likud party has been around for a long time since it took power in 1977. But what's happened is the Likud has been taken over from within by these fanatics, and Netanyahu has brought them in.
Well, interesting. I appreciate the additional context. That's why it's great to have you on here. But you guys see the rise of the Israel extreme right. And CJ, this is what we covered quite a few months ago. And I remember statements from these same politicians that are calling for genocide. It was like the first time I ever seen in my life, Dan, where I seen U.S. politicians like, yo, you see the fuck is going on in Israel? Like, you see these crazies? There's a op-ed, maybe I can find it real quick, where some person in New York Times like, man, Benjamin Netanyahu and his far-right party are making it really hard to support the Zionist project. And I've never seen a headline like that in New York Times. And you guys see how immediately they flipped to pretty much openly endorsing genocide and lying about the Palestinian people. We're going to get to the newest lie that the Western media repeated that was completely debunked. We're going to get to that very soon. CJ, feel free to chime in with any receipts that you have, because I want to get to them while we have time. and I'm very interested in hearing Dan's take on this. Big shout out to Hotspot. They helped me produce my quick Hotspot videos as well. This is the Palestinian ambassador. He been going on a media tour because he essentially have the message of challenging me on the merits of your argument. Challenge me on the merits of your argument. So he's been going on the media offensive, and from everything I've seen thus far, he's been killing the game. So I'm gonna play this clip, and I want to get CJ's and Dan's reaction to it. This is him calling out the hypocrisy of the media.
You just condemned Israel for killing civilians, and you won't condemn Hamas for killing civilians.
How many times you have interviewed Israeli officials, Louise? Hundreds of times. Hundreds of times. How many times Israel have committed crimes right live on your own cameras? Do you start by asking them to condemn themselves? Have you? You don't. You don't. No, I'll answer that question. You don't. You know why I refuse to answer this question? Because I refuse the premise of it. Because at the very heart of it is misrepresentation of the whole thing. Because it's the Palestinians that are always expected to condemn themselves.
And you want to know who's going on with this, CJ? The PNC left. The PNC left right now, openly going on with Zionist propaganda. That's why I refuse to go along with it. And I have the same mindset that he has and my Palestinian brothers and sisters have. I'm going on the fucking offensive. It's game time, fam, right now. Right now. So it's game time right now. They got a genocide plan of the Palestinian people, and the PNC left is waffling, CJ. I'm not waffling at all. I might get banned here soon, to be honest, because this is game time. We need sound like this, but I'll let it finish here.
Because I refuse the premise of it. Because at the very heart of it is misrepresentation of the whole thing. Because it's the Palestinians that are always expected to condemn themselves. I mean, come on, this is a political conflict. We have been denied our rights for a long time. So this is the wrong starting point. The right starting point is to focus on the root causes, is to try and get out of this extreme dark tunnel, as opposed to this business by BBC and the mainstream media for 75 years. You bring us here whenever there are Israelis who are. Did you bring me here when many Palestinians in the West Bank, more than 200 over the last few months? Do you invite me when there is such Israeli provocations in Jerusalem and elsewhere? Because what Israelis have seen, which we started by saying tragic, the last 48 hours, the Palestinians see every day for the last 50 years. You know the situation in Gaza, you've just described it. This is the biggest open-air prison.
You had Israel that executed Shireen Abdul-Akleh. You know how the West claim they care about the free speech and protecting journalists? Israel killed Shireen Abdul-Akleh, and then the Biden administration helped cover that crime up. So I'll pass it to Dan first, then CJ, you can react, and I'll pass it. You can do the next receipt, Dan, if you want to. Dan, any reaction to this? Anything you want to chime in on?
Well, yeah, it's just standard Western propaganda that, I think the ambassador answered it pretty well, that, they hold Palestinians to a completely different standard. It's totally biased. I mean, if you've watched the media operation, the Hasbara propaganda operation over the last 36 hours to about a supposed 40 beheaded babies in an Israeli settlement outside of Gaza, that was completely false, and obviously false from the start. And it was only sourced to an anonymous Israeli soldier who believed it to be true. But all of the Western media ran with it, saying it's true, and these animals beheaded these Israeli babies, and it's still being repeated right now all over Twitter, all over Western media, all over European media. So these aren't media outlets. This isn't journalism. This is just propaganda to generate bloodlust. Because you'd think about what happened in those settlements is horrible. I mean, in terms of like loss of human life, it's horrible. So why does the Israeli military and the Western media feel the need to exaggerate? Isn't it horrible enough? Do they need to invent lies in order to generate bloodlust in the Western countries and in foreign countries, to justify the slaughter, the actual murder and beheading by bombs of Palestinians and babies in the besieged Gaza Strip? I mean, what I was saying about Israel before, this kind of genocidal ideology pulsing through the society. On the other side, you have this incredible resistance mentality in Gaza that, I mean, I've witnessed. You can see it in my documentary. You know, I've talked to people, and I'm not talking about just from the armed resistance themselves. I'm talking about society as a whole, with people understand that they have no choice. It's not that they want to lose their families or their houses or anything like that or be killed. It's that you can't live in Gaza. There is no life. To live as a prisoner without rights is to not live at all. And so people, you know, it's like what the American right wing says, like, give me liberty,
Yes.
give me death. All that stuff about patriotism and defending
Yes.
your land and your dignity and all that stuff. That's what Palestinians are doing. And they're on the brink. So they got to the point where the only way that they can get some kind of leverage in this whole thing is to stage this massive operation to go and kidnap, you know, to go and take captive a bunch of Israelis, most of whom are soldiers. And so that's like, but you know, the crazy thing is Israel, the Israeli government, you have Bezalel Smotrich, who's one of these like apocalyptic right-wing maniacs I was talking about. He's a member of parliament. He's the minister of finance. He's a top official. He is saying, you know what? Let's not worry about those hostages. We need to be cruel. So he wants to bomb every square inch of the Gaza Strip into rubble. He wants to exterminate everybody, and then probably
He said he's going to turn into a tent town.
Exactly. And then kill. And then, of course, I think the underlying message is what they actually want to do is kill the hostages. They have something called the Hannibal Directive. Israel has something called the Hannibal Directive, where it's typically applied to soldiers. So they tell soldiers, if you get captured by the enemy, like by Hamas or Hezbollah or whatever, we're not going to come rescue you. We're going to kill you, because then you can be used to negotiate. So that's what they did in 2014 in the southern Gaza city of Rafah. There was a Hamas operation to take captive soldiers. And so when they did that, they nabbed him and brought him into a tunnel. The Israelis opened up this massive amount of bombing and killed, you know, hundreds of Palestinian civilians and made sure they killed their own soldiers. So I think what we're seeing right now is a very good possibility that the Hannibal Directive is actually being applied to these 150 Israeli captives and hostages in Gaza. The Israeli government wants to kill as many of them as possible, and it was said explicitly by Bezalel Smotrich. So, I mean, it's just unreal.
Yeah, CJ, if you don't mind, just because we mentioned it a few times.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just because it's a giant elephant in the room, we already mentioned a few times. So I'm going to cover this, and I'll pass to you, CJ, so you can share a few receipts as well. Obviously, the story is fake. And if you believed it for 1 second, you need to ask yourself why. How many times have we seen this story? How many? Every single tyrant that the United States hated killed some babies, CJ. Apparently, everyone except the West hates babies. CJ having some inner issues, right? Everyone, Russian kills babies. Iran kills babies. Maduro kills babies. Cuba kills babies. Now Moscow babies. I guess the West is the only people who value the life of babies, right? Because, as I said before, Western propaganda program people to the point where they will believe anything said about an Asian country, a Middle Eastern country, or an African country. But meanwhile, there could be Nazis in Ukraine, Nazis like a motherfucker, literally marching with Nazi shit on, and then white people will be like, I don't know about the Nazis in Ukraine. There's no way white people like that. So I'll show you a few of these headlines that the biggest media corporations and institutions in the world was repeating as fact. MSNBC, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, every single segment repeating this as fact. And what did I tell you guys on this show? RBN didn't fall for it. Our community didn't fall for it. You know why? Because I told you guys anything that the United States say, anything that Israel says, anything about Ukraine, any of these countries are the biggest lying government institutions in the world. Everything the United States accused Russia and China doing with their disinformation is what the United States does. Everything they accuse their enemy of doing, they do. You want to know who killed babies? U.S. soldiers in Iraq. Many of them charged with war crimes, and then Donald Trump fucking pardoned a few of them. Everything they say our enemies do is a projection. So obviously, if you have a brain and you've been following any sort of politics, you knew this was a lie. And there are a lot of receipts to show on this. And every single person that you guys seen repeat this lie need to be held accountable. I'm not forgetting. There are a ton of us making lists right now. Every single person who repeat this lie lost all their credibility. So I'll pass to you guys here very soon, but I want to show you guys these receipts. Go ahead, CJ, if you want to chime in.
No, go ahead.
I'll be real quick. I know you guys probably want to add to this. But look, breaking. Israeli army tells Anadolu that they have no information confirming allegations that Hamas beheaded babies. And do you guys want to know where this story came from? A random Israeli soldier went on an Israeli far-right podcast and said he saw this. So instead of independently verifying this, every single corporate media outlet repeated this as fact. Now, when this situation happened, there was a ton of journalists from all over the country on the ground trying to confirm facts and details. So if there was babies that was beheaded, you would think that there would be hard physical evidence, that there would be confirmation. None of them. So now there are a few. I see your receipt. I'm gonna share that here very soon, Dan. I'll let you introduce that one. But here are a few journals. I'll show you guys one. I'm getting a lot of questions about the reports of Hamas beheading babies that was published after the media tour in the village. During the tour, we didn't see any evidence of this. So you guys see all these journalists from all around the world. They didn't see any evidence, but there were beheaded babies everywhere. And the army spokesperson, our commander, also didn't mention such incidents. What does this remind you guys of? They're essentially the incubator babies all over again. So Dan, I'll pass it to you. I got a few more things I want to share, but I'll pass it to you right now if you have anything you want to add. I think this is what you sent me. Here. But go ahead, Dan. I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, well, this is another one of the propaganda tweets that went around. A pregnant woman in southern Israel was found by Hamas terrorists. They dissected her body. Stomach was cut open, and they took the fetus out with the umbilical cord. Let the unborn child die slowly out of his mother's womb. So, I mean, there was actually a fact check on that people did that says, well, actually, that's not true. And this is what Israel did. With the Israeli military oversaw in the massacres in Sabra and Shatila camp in Lebanon in the 80s. They actually did that. And the Israeli military, Ariel Sharon, the former prime minister specifically, oversaw Lebanese phalangist militias carrying out these massacres. So that's one thing. The other thing about that, actually, I mean, I don't even want to post this. It's so horrible. But I have a photo from yesterday of a Palestinian fetus with the umbilical cord whose head is dead. I mean, and like I've been posting graphic images, horrible images, because people got to see them. But this one, I'm just like, I don't even know. I mean, it's just but it's all projection. It's all projection. There's something about the psychology of like these a group committing genocide that they project their crimes onto their victims. They do something and then accuse them of doing it. So, that's not just like, I'm not talking about just like genocide, like Nazi genocide or whatever, where you were talking about, Nick, where you're like, the crimes that the NATO, the lies to justify the NATO bombing of in Libya or anywhere else. It's always about projection. They lie and accuse their victims of what they're doing. So, I mean,
there's
that's
two reasons.
Example.
I would say there's a couple of reasons for that, Dan and Nick. The projection. There's two things that it unmasks to me. One, they know that they're doing something wrong. So this, we didn't. No, it's just they know exactly to do it, because if you're projecting it as somebody else doing it in order to say they're doing something wrong, that means that it's wrong. The other thing is this is a completely psychological sort of campaign. They know, the medias know how this works. Somebody says something as egregious as beheadings, I'm supposed to get a source to get this before I report it. They know it's not, because this is what you have to, again, the way I always think about this issue is to think about it in the think about it in the same terms of slavery. In order for people to be, in order for the regular white population who may not be racist, in order for them to be okay with the hangings of black people, you have to say, look, they're looking at white girls and they're going to rape them, and they're raping them. You see, it's a psychological thing that makes the viewer of atrocities be okay with your atrocities if you say it's because they committed some atrocity first. It is a psychological thing to make you, the audience, okay with genocide, okay with the upcoming genocide. So when you see the pictures of the beheaded Palestinian child, for example, Dan, all you got to do is point to all the shit that you just heard. Well, they beheaded 80 babies over there. You get what I'm saying? So it is all a psychological thing in order for your bad deeds, once it hits the public eye, for it to take on a different sort of reaction. Because if it didn't have that, if you just started coming out and people started seeing Palestinian babies beheaded without any other, people will be like, what the hell is going on over here? You get what I'm saying? It's a human reaction that they're trying to curb before we get there. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I have no tolerance for anyone repeating this fake news. I also have no tolerance for the people who just discovered this issue last week. For the people who say, oh, Nick, are you telling me you don't care about the Israelis? Where the fuck was you? Where the fuck was you before you condemn me? Before you condemn the Palestinians? This is a small reality, what the fuck they've been dealing with in Gaza. And you guys are virtue signaling, I don't care about Israel. Get the fuck out of here. You was nowhere to be found. And the Palestinians was being genocide. So this is the real human cause. For the people who think this is a conflict, even as the graphs say, this is ethnic cleansing and people bravely fighting back. Give me liberty or give me death. Apparently that only applies to white people. So I see your receipt, Dan. I'm gonna share that here very soon. The last thing I'm gonna share before I pass to CJ and get to that receipt is this is Sky News explaining why they're the only one apparently who have remotely any sort of ounce of integrity, where they say they're not gonna cover the beheaded babies claim because there's no fucking evidence of it.
Many of the newspapers, the Metro, the Times, the Telegraph, leading on these reports from Kfar Aza. We saw our correspondent Stuart Ramsey's report from there. It seems to have come from one Israeli journalist who said that she was told by soldiers there that 40 babies had died and some of them had been beheaded. Yeah. Truly horrifying. We have not seen the evidence of that. We have asked the Israeli Defense Forces, the IDF, 3 times to confirm those numbers. They have not yet. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, but we saw a body bag with 1 child in it today when we were at Kfar Aza with this facility by the Israeli army.
Yes, and I think it's important to recognize that emotions are very high at this point. And you are looking at women and children who have been murdered in this situation. That is undeniable. I think that there is an issue around the verification of this particular sentiment, which in itself is so horrifying. It forces the emotions. I think when I read this, I assumed that it was true, that it wasn't contended at all. And the horror that you feel when you think that this is potentially something that's happened is enormous. So it is very important to have the verification of something like this. And if you look down on the Metro here that you have up there, they've put it in quotation marks, and they've talked about the Israeli claim of 40 babies having been beheaded. And if you look down some of the other papers, so the Telegraph, for example, they say that the Telegraph could not verify the claim. But it is important to say that we know that women and children have been killed in this massacre.
Dan, you want to take from here?
Yeah, I mean, this whole beheaded babies thing, if you can pull up, yeah, exactly. So we got Charlie Kirk, from Turning Points USA, Talking Points, whatever.
They've been so fucking crazy on the right, man. They've been so fucking crazy. Go ahead, Dan.
I mean, it's there's like, you guys have talked about this, I think, and I think, I've agreed with your guys' position on like, allying with the like populist right against the Ukraine war. And I've thought like, yeah, like war is the worst thing. So even if people are wrong with other things on other things, then like if they're going to come to my anti-war rally, great. Like if they're going to denounce war and say, no, don't fund Ukraine, great. I don't know if Kirk is one of them. I wouldn't be surprised because it's kind of like that whole sort of Trump right-wing position. But the way they have exposed themselves as the biggest frauds in the last 3 days, just sucking down that propaganda like crazy. Charlie Kirk. So yeah, you got all right. So that's his tweets from yesterday. All right, that was yesterday. This is not 2 hours ago. Okay, they found the bodies of 40 Jewish babies, some with their heads cut off. Okay, then right after that, oh wait, this might be misinformation. We don't actually know, but let's be careful. Then it gets debunked, like you just showed. Oh, it turns out the source is just some anonymous Israeli soldier who believes it happened, and it just all falls apart. It's all bullshit. And then if you go back to his tweet about Rashida.
Oh yeah, this one here.
Yeah. So then you have this Fox News reporter chasing Rashida Tlaib throughout Congress.
I got a story coming on that soon.
And demanding that she denounce the 40.
Let's watch it real quick.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but let's watch it for people that see it, because I actually haven't seen it yet either. I actually have a hotspot video coming out soon on this. You have the entire right wing that's trying to expel Rashida Tlaib. Democrats trying to primary her. You know what she said, CJ? She said we need to end the siege of Gaza and end the blockade. That's what she said.
Her.
And they want to fucking expel her for that.
Yes.
Anyway,
Let's
watch the video in context now. Pass right back.
All right.
And some of them were beheaded right in front of their parents, and then their parents were killed after the parents had to watch their babies beheaded. So that's what, and then she has a Palestinian flag outside of her office. So Hillary's asking her about, do you condone what's happening?
Watch.
Terrorists have cut off babies' heads and burned children alive. Do you support
these people should never be taken seriously ever again?
We're just gonna get up through there. You can't comment about Hamas terrorists chopping off babies.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but do these people lose their Facebook page now?
Yeah, right. Exactly. For spreading disinformation. Exactly. Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, where are all the fact checkers? Those Silicon Valley fact checker operations and Bellingcat. Yes. They're all silent. They don't have anything to say. They're just like, yep, let's kill some Palestinians.
Another thing I want to say here, Nick, is that this is an example of why social sort of democratic approaches will never be good, because a person who understands the situation should not be running.
Yeah, I will call it out right here.
You be standing your ground. What are you talking about? What's your source of that? Who? Okay, I need to check that source. Okay, did you know there was 200 blah, blah, blah that was killed? Can I comment on that and comment on this one? You get what I'm saying? There's a lot of she could have did here. There's a lot of she could have done to our here. Criticism. If you're engaged in the issue, really engaged, not surface level, you will be able to come point after point. What do you mean? Blah, blah, blah. This is just like the guy in the video you showed, the guy that's on a tour for Palestinian. He's going on and saying, what do you mean? The whole framing I reject. That's why I'm not answering. So she could have did that here too. This sort of social democratic approach to these big issues like Palestine simply will not work, because you're almost just virtue signaling about. You don't really know the issue enough to really speak about it and stand your ground under things like this, because there's no way you should be running away from this issue. No, even with this story, you should not be running away like this. But go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. I didn't mean to interrupt, CJ, but this is to the point. Our critique of these people, the squad, they're ineffective left-wing leaders. Even the issue with Rashida get technically right, you see how she has an inability to combat this. We explained this when Rashida was caught running away when Lion Cosgrove called her out for supporting Biden despite his climate record, and she ran away. We said, you're a left leader. Why the fuck are you running away? You're supposed to be our voice. This is your opportunity to debunk this shit on Fox News. But they're deeply unserious and they're intellectually weak, and that is not what we need as leaders. Even on the issue where Rashida is mostly correct, like even in terms of framing, that's why they're going after her. But let's finish this, and I want to get Dan. I want to get your thoughts.
Terrorists have cut off babies' heads and burned children alive. Do you support Israel's rights to defend themselves against Israel?
One thing I say, because I heard about this, I'm still trying to finish. I watched like 5 minutes of it. Apparently, Max Blumenthal, he went on Tim Pool show last night and fucking dismantled these motherfuckers. I have people people send me tips all the time. I only had a chance to watch 5 minutes of it, but Max fucking killed these Zionist people. Why can't Rashida Tlaib do what Max does? I know Max is exceptional, right? But you're a leader. You're a congressperson. You should easily be able to do what Max Blumenthal did on Timcast if you're propping yourself up as a leader. You're ineffective. We need people like Max Blumenthal that will be. If Fox News was afraid to call them out. Right. Meanwhile, they are excited to go to Rashid, CJ, Dan. They can't wait to interview Corey because they know they're gonna get some stupid shit that come out of their mouth. Anyway, let's
we're just gonna go through there.
You can't comment about Hamas terrorists chopping off babies' heads. Do you condone what Hamas has done, chopping off babies' heads, burning children alive, raping women in the street? You have no comment about children's heads being chopped off.
And when she does it, she makes our position look weak.
Yes.
She makes us look weak. This is horrible. I didn't see this before. This is actually horrible.
If you do not condone what
but Dan, I don't even want time. I should message Dan here. Not much to see here. Dan, anything you want to add to this?
Well, so check it out. If you go back to that, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like Rashida Tlaib should just, I wish she would be able to debunk it, but you know. If you go back to that Charlie Kirk tweet, you see, and go to my tweet, go back like one more. Oh yeah. Sorry, that was it.
Yeah, you want this tweet?
So he's exactly.
Right here,
so he's so that's from today. That's October 11th. That is today at what time? 11 a.m. So it has already been debunked. He admitted it's misinformation. Yesterday, he admitted it's misinformation. It might be misinformation. I don't know. Then right after it was debunked, it was obviously fake. Then it was confirmed fake. But today he's still promoting it. So this is not misinformation. This is disinformation. This is intentional. That's what Charlie Kirk, the Charlie Kirks of the world, these total frauds are trying to do. They're pumping out this genocidal propaganda to stimulate bloodlust in foreign audiences, in the U.S. audience, to kill Palestinians. This is like, you know what blood libel is?
Yeah.
You know that Jews were accused of drinking Christian children's blood. That's what this is. That's what these guys are doing to Palestinians. And what's the result? Is neighborhoods wiped out, is dead babies, dead families, dead medics. That's what's going on.
And I mentioned this earlier, but you notice how the same free speech absolutists on the right are absolutely silent about the US and UK cracking down on free speech. The UK floated the idea, and they're probably going to follow through on it, on banning people from waving the Palestinian flag. Where's the Charlie Kirk video about that? Right. Where's the Tim Pool video about that? Isn't it interesting they don't care about that? I told you guys from day fucking one that right-wing populism is quite literally nothing but white identity politics. Give me liberty or give me death, but only for white people. Free speech, but only for white people. Second Amendment, but only for white people. That is literally what it is. But you guys say RBN the people who raise bait, but that's literally their politics. Just white identity politics. Matt Gaetz, and I told you guys, remember the super chat I took yesterday on Monday at CJ? When someone like, man, I hope Matt Gaetz saves us from this. I'm like, fam, don't get it twisted. I'm for forming coalitions. And this is what you mentioned earlier, Dan. Mm-hmm. And this is the nuance that so many dumb leftists don't understand. I'm for forming coalitions. If you're right on Ukraine, I'm going to form a coalition with you so we can end the Ukraine war. But I am not mistaken that you're somehow anti-war in principle. So we're going to form a coalition to end the Ukraine war, while I will militantly, as you guys see, fight you on literally every other issue. Right? So here's Matt Gaetz, the quote-unquote right-wing populist, right? Who approving of unchecked military aid to Israel. Well, let me read Marco Rubio's tweet first so you get full context. Well, Marco Rubio said the reason military aid to Israel will not face some of the obstacles Ukraine aid has faced is because back in November of 2020, we passed a bill authorizing a minimum of $3.8 billion a year. So as they do that, they talking about, man, we had a government shutdown and all this shit. Americans gonna struggle. Meanwhile, they're just like guarantee money to Israel and Ukrainian Nazis. Matt Gaetz have a criticism of the automatic funding to Ukrainian Nazis, but what do you think about funding to Israel? Israel is on auto pay per the senators' wise legislation. Wise legislation. They have a qualitative military edge for a reason. They will crush Hamas.
Let me ask a question here. Let me insert a question with Hamas because it's and this is based on a tweet from you. I'll bring it up in just a second, Dan. Can you talk about? I hope I'm not stepping on a segment or anything, Nick. But can you kind of talk about Iran? How is Iran being drawn into this conflict as far as media propaganda? And maybe to a lesser extent, a little bit of Russia that I'm hearing, and then I'll bring up that tweet that I'm referring to. But Dan, can you sort of give context to how are they involving Iran with Hamas and the Palestinian resistance, and then to a lesser extent, Russia?
Yeah, well, the media portrayal, specifically with the Wall Street Journal report saying, I mean, it's a totally ludicrous report saying that Iranian officials and Palestinian, Hamas officials met in Beirut repeatedly and just last Monday approved. Iran gave the go-ahead and helped plot this whole operation and plotted it. That's what they said, and it's totally phony. It just doesn't make any sense. It's already been basically discredited, but it's an obvious attempt from the kind of neocons to try to draw Iran in, and also to portray Hamas and Palestinian resistance as nothing but a tool of Iran, that they're just a proxy of Iran, and that it's not a Palestinian fight, that they're not actually trying to fight the Israeli occupation. They're just being manipulated. They're just being used by Iran. And so, that's the Hasbara, that's the Israeli government line, that's the US government line. So, and it's kind of like they're trying to maybe use this as a pretext to punish Iran, or maybe to attack it or something like that. And so, and then there were these ludicrous claims. I have to find we'd have to find the tweet, but from these idiots saying that like Russia is involved and gave the orders and is this is like Putin is behind this. It's just like the logical extension of Russiagate stupidity. That Russia doesn't have any relationship to Hamas. Russia has good relations with Israel, in fact, generally speaking. So I mean, it's all just neocon babble trying to, merge these two theaters of war, the Middle East and Ukraine, Eastern Europe, to into one. So it's really dangerous, is what it is.
And I'll play this short clip. He speaks about it right here. Sorry about that, Nick. He speaks about it right here. And if you read the caption on the screen, it says United Nations says that more than 123,000 Palestinians have already been displaced at the time of this taping, which was yesterday. So it's probably a lot more than that. But let's listen. He speaks to the connection and why there is.
Explain to our international audience the relationship between Iran and Israel, and why Tehran is being accused of having, quote, tentacles all over this attack by Hamas.
Iran's support for the Palestinian people is linked to the revolution itself. During the revolution, there were two causes that the Iranians were very much focused on. One was supporting the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, and the second was supporting the dispossessed Palestinian people across Palestine. And at that time, Western countries were supporting both the apartheid regime in South Africa and the Israeli regime. And Nelson Mandela, the ANC, and others were all terrorist organizations in Western capitals. So Iran's support for Hamas, the Islamic Jihad, and other resistance groups is because they have a legitimate cause. They've been dispossessed. they've been colonized, they've been ethnically cleansed, and the people who are trapped in Gaza, in this ghetto, they have been dispossessed from their land across southern Palestine.
I guess I want to look at the broader context of this and what it means in terms of Hezbollah and Hamas, the Lebanese militant group being involved in the broader implications regionally. Could we see this conflict now spilling out further in the region?
It is quite possible because we are seeing the genocidal tendencies of the Israeli regime playing out as they indiscriminately bomb homes and murder women and children across Gaza. And Western media, they all are justifying it because they've all been justifying the actions of the apartheid settler regime for decades. And as we speak, people are being massacred. Last night, they were being massacred. Towers have been razed to the ground, and constantly Western media outlets have been trying to justify.
So, Dan, do you think, or what is your take on, could this spill out to a broader sort of conflict or war outside of Palestine and Israel, considering some of the other things that Israel is involved in, bombing in Syria and such? Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, absolutely, it can. Hezbollah has said that if Israel launches a ground invasion into Gaza, then it will open a front in the north. So then you have Israel, fighting two fronts, which who knows if it can even handle that. Honestly, Hezbollah is very strong, stronger than Hamas, and Hamas has shown that it's quite capable, obviously. And so, I mean, Hezbollah has become stronger throughout the Syrian war. It emerged stronger. It has huge amounts of fighters, and it is well armed. So this is not, just guys with AK-47s. This is like serious weaponry, and the Israelis are extremely vulnerable. And so then I do think with Iran, if it feels, if Hezbollah and Hamas are under serious threat, I think Iran could see that as an existential threat. So, when we say there's no, the claim from the neocons is that Iran is directing the whole thing, that Hezbollah and Hamas are just proxies. It's not that. It's that there's an alliance, and there's a material alliance even. Iran provides weaponry to Hezbollah and to Hamas and training, et cetera, et cetera. That does not mean that they're tools or pawns of them. It means they have the same interests. And so if Iran, sees them as seriously threatened and thinks that their existence is under threat, then it could very well get involved. So, I mean, this has all the possibilities to explode into a regional and even world war. So, I mean,
when you say a real... Oh, he does. I'm sorry. Go ahead, then. Go ahead, Nick, if you had another question.
I want to pass it to
My
Dan.
bad.
I appreciate your contributions. It's great to have you on. As always, where can they find your work, Dan?
So you can see my stuff at Redacted on YouTube, and then I'm doing stuff more on my channel, Uncaptured Media. The other thing, if I can just do a little promotion real quick, I just announced today I have a secret. It's at this point it has to be a secret, but an explosive documentary project that I've been working on for years that I need to basically fundraise to take control of and finish. And I've basically decided it needs to come out as soon as possible, and I need to raise money for that. So if you go on my Twitter, my pinned tweet, you can see the link to my go buy me a coffee, or if you want to contribute any other way. I launched that today. So the sooner I can get that money, the sooner I can take control of this thing. And I'm just purely relying on the public. I don't have any funders or big benefactors or anything like that. It's like $5 at a time. So anyway, if anyone wants to contribute to that, that'll be awesome. But anyway, thank you guys a lot for having me. I appreciate what you guys do, and keep up the fight.
Yeah, thank you for coming on, Dan. Make sure you guys support his work. He does fantastic work. So Dan, I'm gonna pop you in the back, and CJ, I'll pass it to y'all. Now, I'm sorry I kind of took over, but dude, this issue.
No, I didn't read the.
Yeah.
I didn't read the private chat.
Yeah.
He said he had to go. My bad about that, Dan. I was looking at some other stuff, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll pass to you because I told you guys there's no way I was gonna get through my receipts today. I already know that. Like, this is I've been following the Israel-Palestine conflict since I've been following. Like, that was the thing that radicalized me out of the Democratic Party. Like, that was like the starting point. Like, when I seen Democrats support their ethnic cleansing of 2014, their genocide 2014, in response of an IDF embarrassment. So, like, what we're watching right now is like the accumulation of what I've been following for a long time regarding the Palestinians. That's why I'm so angry, and I've been shouting. I apologize. Hope you guys can deal with me for the next few days, because I am watching the PMC left waffle during the most important time of this issue, CJ. Virtue signaling forever. Now shit gets real, and then they threw the Palestinians under the bus. All of them are doing it. So I'm glad that we have a platform at RBN where we can correct the record. And we're going to have many more amazing voices like Fiorella, Dan Cohen on the next few days. So, CJ, I'll pass to you. I know I took a lot of time with this live.
It's the same subject, but I'm just going to touch on some other parts because I do want to cover what AOC is saying.
Yeah,
it's just
definitely
amazing. I do want to cover Tulsi, and we're going to start there with Tulsi because it's pretty quick. We're just going to show a tweet. It's not a video or anything like that. So let's start with Tulsi Gabbard. And when Rage Against the War Machine was going on, let me see which one I have up here, was going on. When that was, I'm on the right page. When that was taking place, there was a lot of critique.
I'll be right back, CJ.
Go ahead. The left landed on, you either landed on attending the Rage Against the War Machine rally, or you landed on not attending the Rage Against the War Machine rally. And I would say it was probably 60-40, something like that. 60-40, 60% saying don't go, 40% saying do go. And the critique that people had of that was that, well, you have people that's headlining this Rage Against the War Machine rally or march. You have them headlining that aren't anti-war, and Tulsi Gabbard was one of them. And now RBN did have some of the same critiques of the Rage Against the War Machine rally, yet our position was still that we were going to attend, and Sabi did still attend. But the pushback against the Rage Against the War Machine rally was this. If you are, or one of the pushbacks, if you're attending or if you're putting on these marches and so-called anti-war marches with people who aren't anti-war, that could be problematic down the line. And I think we're seeing what they meant by that. And because Tulsi Gabbard headlined a war rally, and then several months later, she comes out with this tweet, and I'll read it. The United States must stand with Israel in the face of this terrorist attack by the Islamist terrorist group Hamas. This is just the latest example of the greater war being waged by both Sunni and Shia Islamist jihadists throughout the world. This should be a wake-up call to leaders everywhere that the Islamist jihadists are the greatest short and long-term threat to the safety, security, and freedom of the American people and the people around the world. Now, you may be reading this, I'm reading this, and you might be thinking, wait, what is it's not the proxy war and the proxy war with Russia and the upcoming war with China? That's not the single greatest threat. The United States isn't the single greatest threat against peace. Apparently, by this anti-war, pseudo anti-war person, Tulsi Gabbard, I guess not. And before I get to some of the reaction, because I do want to zero in on part of this here before I get to some of this reaction. I want to zero in on this part. This sentence to me, it's more telling than more than what it says. Because for Tulsi Gabbard to say this, to me, it speaks to her sort of critique of any war, even the war that I agree with that she's against, which is the Ukraine war. Because for her to say this is a wake-up call to leaders everywhere that somehow Hamas and people who are like Hamas are the single greatest short-term and long-term threat to freedom of the American people and all around the world is just a bold-faced lie. And I don't know if she's lying, misled, or being just a blatant propagandist in this tweet right here. But Nick, I know you was hearing a little bit what I said, but what is your take before we move on this person leading a Rage Against the War Machine anti-war rally, then several months later having a tweet like this? And what I was saying is it speaks to some of the people who had the critiques, the Ajamu Barakas, the Black Alliance for Peace of the rallies, that you're leaving yourself open for something like this person who's not really anti-war, but speaking at a war rally, then months later shows their true colors that they're not really anti-war. But what say you, sir, before we kind of move on?
Yeah,
to the
you guys
next,
know this, and we're going to get to Lindsey Graham here soon, where the people who support Israel, they always have to make it a religious struggle. You guys notice that? Islamist terrorists. She's talking about Sunni and Shia. All this nonsense, right? The Israel-Palestine conflict is not a religious struggle. You guys understand? It is absolutely not a religious struggle. There are Middle Eastern Christians, Middle Eastern Muslims. There are people of different religious affiliations all over the Middle East, all over Northern Africa, all over Eastern Asia that supports Palestine. They all got different religions. They're all not Muslims. They got very different religions and beliefs. But you got to notice the only thing that Zionist scumbags like Tulsi Gabbard can do is make it a religious struggle so it doesn't become a merit-based argument about colonialism. So if you are a religious zealot, if you're an evangelical, if you're someone believing in sky daddies and magical books and shit, you immediately would just take one side over the other without thinking, right? That is the plan, and that is the strategy of Zionists. I want everyone in the RB community to repeat after me because it's true. There is no legal, there is no moral, and there is no intellectual argument for Zionism. So what do they do, CJ? They make it a holy war. We see through you. We see through you. Go ahead, CJ.
Absolutely. And I mean, there's not much else to say on the Tulsi. So let's just pivot to the next one. I think this is a little bit because ALC one, this is where we're doing ALC next. This is it right here. So let me share.
I got a video coming out soon on this. Sorry, CJ, I'll pass to you, hopefully, but I got a hot spot.
Hopefully it's out because your videos be bangers for these clips. I hope it hopefully comes out before we're done.
Yeah, you guys know Hotspot helped me edit the videos. I'm not that fucking good at editing if you guys don't know. They just like Nico and them, they help me edit these videos because they love my rants or whatever. So it usually come out around 2 and 3. I send them the video right before the stream, so it should be coming out soon. But CJ, I'll pass to you because I'm gonna have a video talking about this very soon. It's historic, once in a generation sellout that AOC and the squad are. My good friend Thea, I gotta give her a shout out, said she was the first person I've seen say it, when she said AOC to Nancy Pelosi. And I remember when she said that, I mean, this was like in 2019. People were so mad at her, but that was the best fucking prediction I've ever seen. AOC is throwing DSA under the bus. So, CJ, is it shameful? And I'll pass to you, I know this is your story, my man. But
no worries, no, good preface, yeah, keep going.
Yeah, is it shameful that AOC condemned and rebuked DSA before DSA rebuked AOC? How fucking embarrassing is that?
Embarrassing.
What have we been telling you guys on the RBN? We've been telling you guys that DSA needs to expel AOC. They need to expel Jamaal Bowman. You know, Jamaal Bowman met with Israeli ministers and military leaders. He did a tour of Israel. They should have been expelled But DSA put out a statement where they thought we gotta make strategic choices, and having someone in office like AOC is actually a good decision, even when we're not aligned on all the issues. Now AOC is using their platform to shit on y'all, and I can't say that you guys don't deserve it. Because it's exactly what we warned you guys on. But sorry, CJ, I'll pass it to you because I think that's extremely embarrassing that DSA allowed this to happen.
Here's the headline. And this is AOC. I mean, there's nothing else to say. AOC calls out the DSA, and AOC is pushing pro-war Zionism. AOC knocks bigotry and callousness of Times Square rally for Palestinians, which is just,
AOC called them bigots, fam. Oh, Jesus. I'm sorry, guys. This shit is so fucking like, this is the hardest story I'd rather cover since I'm big.
This is
like,
it is.
It's easy. Like, she is calling people bigots, and during this rally, there were signs, and the message of the rally was that Palestinians had the right to defend themselves, which is UN Charter. The same thing that AOC is saying about Ukraine, she's condemning DSA for saying about the indigenous Palestinian people. Oh, CJ, go ahead. I got
That's it, right? And here's my tweet.
I got a lot to say about this, man. Like,
here's my tweet. It speaks to some of what you were already just saying a second ago. It's very ironic that the organization who refused to call out AOC is now being called out by AOC. DSA looked the other way when it came to all of AOC strike breaking and warmongering votes, but she's not looking the other way for their support for Palestinians. And this rally, Nick, has reverberated everywhere. There, a lot of people, propagandists are pointing to this as a sort of hate rally. All of the sort of elected progressives called it out, from Richie to Jamaal Bowman. Let me bring up the actual article, and then we'll go to those.
Yeah, I have an article here actually.
Bring it up if you have it.
I can save you time just because I was searching for a quote, so I'll pull it up since I already have it here.
Yeah, if you already have it, yeah.
And this is the headline. AOC called them bigots. And then the funny thing is, what DSA is saying in retaliation, in response to like all the Democrats in Congress who they supported calling them out, and they said, "Oh well, we didn't organize it. It was the other real organizers of the organization out there. We didn't know about this. They're playing dumb, right?" They said, "Let me read this. Several lawmakers with DSA ties are distancing themselves from what was said at the event." And now this is what I wanted to focus on. That's why I pulled the article up. It should not be hard to shut down hatred and anti-Semitism where we see it. So AOC here is repeating the AIPAC-approved talking point that anyone that has solidarity with the Palestinian people is anti-Semitic. Apparently, CJ, AOC is so dumb, she don't know the Palestinian people are Semitic people.
Yeah.
That's a core tenet of solidarity. Using their words wrongly. These people are so dangerous. That is not what the fuck solidarity mean, AOC. AOC, one of the 6 DSA members in Congress, in the statement said late Monday. CJ, you know, I won't point out the point that you guys see how she is literally repeating Nancy Pelosi AIPAC approved talking points, smearing people simply calling for Palestinian self-determination anti-Semitic. It doesn't get lower than this.
Yeah,
CJ, go ahead.
Yeah, let me I'm just gonna read one part here and I'll just switch it out because I already have it set. It says the New York City chapter of DSA is facing a political firestorm after the organization promoted a pro-Palestinian rally in the wake of Hamas militant attacks on Israeli communities. I mean, just the framing there, attacks on that framing, you already know what side that this news organization is coming on. The group did not organize Sunday's rally. Its leadership said
see that,
Monday,
CJ?
Yes.
You see that cowardly shit? This is the part where DSA, I'm sorry to interrupt, CJ, but this is the part
go ahead.
DSA is supposed to make their face turn. Like my brothers are into pro. I tell you guys this all the time. My brothers are super into pro wrestling, so I know all the terms. This is your chance to make a face turn, DSA. You sold out your constituents to strike-breaking pro-war Democrats. So your chance to redeem yourself is now, where these same Democrats condemned you. Now you're supposed to stand up for your rank and file. Hey, AOC, our rank and file have every right to stand up for the lives of Palestinians. You should too. In fact, we need to start the process for expelling you. This is the time. And imagine DSA did that. Nigga, we be like, nigga, you see DSA? They about to expel all of you. That is their time for a face turn. Well, all our criticism with them in the past, they could have made right. But instead, DSA, the organization, threw their members under the bus and said, oh, we had nothing to do with this. We didn't do it. AOC, we didn't do it, queen. It's our fucking uncontrollable, rowdy rank and file. What did we tell you? I have no heat for even the somewhat ignorant, you would say, rank and file members of DSA, because a lot of them are fucking real. They are led off a cliff by the professional managerial class that hijacked DSA. Sorry, CJ, I'll pass it to you guys, but that's the part I saw in the story, and I thought that was unbelievable. When I saw AOC threw a DSA under the bus, I was like, this is DSA chance. Of course they wouldn't take it. But CJ, go ahead. You can continue.
Yeah, let me just read a couple more sentences. The group did not organize. Oh, sorry, I read that. This next part right here. This is the quote from her. Quote, it should not be hard to shut down hatred and anti-Semitism where we see it. That is a core tenet of solidarity, AOC said. Come in. My daughter's knocking on my door. Quote, the bigotry and callousness expressed in Times Square on Sunday were unacceptable and harmful in this devastating moment. It also did not speak for the thousands of New Yorkers who are capable of rejecting both Hamas' horrifying attacks, both against innocent civilians, as well as grave injustices and violence Palestinian face under occupation. Now, I must say, just zooming into this, and this is where I'm going to stop as far as reading. When you are seeing a establishment shield that uses virtue signaling, but they don't mean anything about it, you can see the sign in how they speak in the description. And let's look at it right here. It says New Yorkers are capable of rejecting both Hamas. Listen to how she described horrifying attacks against innocent civilians. Then listen how she describes against grave injustices against Palestinians. You see, she's telling you without telling you whose side she's on, even though she projects she's in the middle or she's for the most downtrodden.
This is the weaponization of pacifism that the professional managerial class does in order to shield and protect the empire, whether they know they're doing it or not. AOC in her position, she knows exactly what she's doing. So if Palestinians are victims of injustice and violence, as you claim, AOC, do you or do you not agree with the UN Charter that claims they have the right to resist the people that are complicit with that? If your answer to that is no, you're weaponizing pacifism in order to uphold the status quo. Pacifism can have honor to it when applied to a personal level. You personally choose to be a pacifist. That's honorable, right? You become an enemy of Black, brown, and working class people the second that you take your personal decision to engage in pacifism and weaponize it. AOC is taking pacifism and being the head of Palestinians over it. If they are victims of crime, they have the right to defend themselves, and anyone who's saying otherwise is spreading Zionist propaganda, and they are complicit with the upcoming genocide of Palestinian people. Now you guys see why I'm upset? All these people talked a good game when it will help their social media followers, CJ. When it will help get them elected. When it will help get them people social brownie points. But the second that shit gets real, these motherfuckers threw us under the bus. Exactly what we warned you guys of at RBN. Go ahead, CJ.
Now, you hear what AOC says about the situation in Palestine. Some people call it Israel, but I call it Palestine. And the latest sort of uprising or conflict, whichever you want to say. Now, say a similar situation between Ukraine and Russia. Let's see what she says about that, Nick. Let's see what she says.
Whoever can speak here makes the issue of Ukraine funding a wedge issue. Are Democrats prepared to go to the wall to defend it? And beyond that, what do you say to Republicans who don't think that we should fund Ukraine?
Well, I think U.S. commitment to democracy is incredibly important. U.S. commitment to our allies are important. And the word of the United States globally is important. And when we say that we're going to make a commitment, to follow through on that commitment, to support our allies, and to also defend people of Ukraine, this is very important for global stability. To allow a country to invade another country and taking us back to 18th century, 19th century imperialism is
19th century. What are you talking about? This is just 50 years ago. So what has happened? 1946, I think, when this happens. AOC? This is amazing to me, and I made a separate tweet on this. It's amazing to me, Nick, that we have these two situations. Marianne Williamson falls into this too, where we have similar. They're not exact, and I get that they're not exact, but you have Palestine versus Israel, and then you have Ukraine versus Russia, and you have these words, imperialism, sovereignty, thrown around. But we seem to land on different positions on issues that seem to be similar based on what you're telling us, ruling class. Absolutely. That is so amazing, Nick. What do you think it speaks to, though, that they're having to do this sort of word salad to be able to say this is different and that is different? How do you think they're able? How are they doing with this sort of logic when they provide an answer to that, Nick?
You was careful as well, and I try to be very careful with the Ukraine comparisons because I want to put it in context here. The United States funded a fascist Nazi uprising in Ukraine that committed a campaign of ethnic cleansing against the ethnic Russian people. So then Russia responds in order to save the lives of the ethnic Russian people. And then now the people say, oh, the fascists in Ukraine had the right to continue their ethnic cleansing. Meanwhile, the Palestinians, the indigenous population, are victims of the United States funding a fascist genocidal regime that want to commit ethnic cleansing. You guys see the parallels here? Mm-hmm. The parallels is the United States and the progressives will always side with the offensive force that are trying to commit ethnic cleansing and genocide. But the second that anyone resists the ethnic cleansing and genocide that the West want to sponsor, they didn't weaponize pacifism against those people. Russia is bad because they want to stop the ethnic cleansing of Russians in eastern Ukraine. Palestinians are bad because they want to fight against the ethnic cleansing sponsored by the West, by the Israeli people. So you was careful, and that was well done. But and I'm saying it for our audience, you got to be very careful when you use Ukraine comparisons, because that's how you explain it. The United States sponsors ethnic cleansing the same way the fascists did in Ukraine, and they don't want people to fight back against that. The same way they don't want Palestinians to fight back against their ethnic cleansing. Like Jenny said, I saw this comment outside my eye, the fascists stick together. Remember what Zelensky said at the very beginning of the war? I covered it. Zelensky said that he wants to have an Israel model for Ukraine. He literally said it, CJ. What the fuck do you guys think that means? He wanted to create an apartheid state for people who are ethnic Russians or are quote-unquote pro-Moscow tendencies. So, CJ, that's a great observation. I'm glad you brought it up. I'm glad you brought that interview up because it shows the moral depravity of AOC. And these same people that said the fascists in Ukraine had the right to defend themselves in order for us to expand NATO, but Palestinians don't have the right to fight for their indigenous land. What is weaponized hypocrisy? As I say, weaponized hypocrisy is the highest form of corruption. The highest form is what the empire used, and AOC is engaging in weaponized hypocrisy. CJ, I pass for you. I let you finish the show with receipts. I know I went long. So CJ, I pass for to you.
I got another one that I'm sure you're gonna love. This is all still on Israel. This entire stream is gonna be Israel. It's just other sort of small stories surrounding the same larger story. And I know you've seen this. It's been kind of viral for everybody. Luke Skywalker apparently has gone completely to the dark side, sir. And we'll start here with this. So Mark Hamill, which is the person who plays, that's his real name, who plays Luke Skywalker in the Star Wars trilogy. I think in 3 of the movies he appears, and maybe some cameos in some other movies. But he goes on right here and says, America stands with Israel. Now, if you're new to Luke Skywalker on social media, he's a complete shit lib. He falls in line with a lot of the shit libbery that goes on.
Mark Hamill is the greatest shit lib that I ever seen shit lib ever. Like it's always the worst I've ever seen shit lib.
And of course, we got a lot of people that chimed in. He says America stands with Israel, and then he hashtags always with the 2 flags, right? And then of course we have our friends and family. Savvy chimes in, Jedi supports apartheid. And she goes viral there. Like, that's amazing. She goes viral with just that short part. And then also Nico House also goes viral, and his says, you were never a rebel. You just got paid to act like one. I'm happy Disney made your character become the blank. I think these mean bitch you actually are in person. It's more fitting. That is so spot on. But then this part here, I would now let me show you how many likes. You think, man, good Jesus, he's been propped up and amplified. 106,000 likes, and you're thinking, damn, ain't nobody gonna ratio him. Yes, he got ratioed 129,000.
How is that possible?
How is that even possible by the People's City Council? They out here in LA. They do a lot of protesting. They do a lot of good work.
How is that possible?
They're the real deal. But they got ratio. He got ratio. You would think it's not possible, but he got completely ratio. But Nick, what are some of the most shit libbery things? Because you know more. You got more op. You got more op. That's what I was just going to. So go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Fantastic segment. I got a few things I want to add to this. And my response to Mark Hamill, are being told you so. What did we tell you guys about the white liberal? He's a fox, like our great ancestor Malcolm X said. They're foxes. They are our enemy. The same white liberals who pretend they're on our side, they are showing their entire ass right now. So Mark Hamill showed his entire ass right now. This is new. Someone sent me this midstream. I didn't fit with the Mark Hamill segment because if you're on Twitter, you know David Weissman. I say Mark Hamill, the king of shit libs, but David Weissman right up there with them. Like, it's 1A and 1B. Like, if you know Twitter, you've seen these shit libs around. David Weissman is as shit libbery as it comes. Now, this is what they're saying now, because there's a mass genocidal psychosis that's going on in the West right now. And David Weissman, brain is fried. He is a folding at the mouth psychopath because of this mass genocide psychosis that's going on. And now, white liberals showing their ass. Now, look what David Weissman said. Fuck them. Maybe the right was right about Black Lives Matter. We told you guys, don't trust these white fucking liberals. But people, more liberal-minded people will be 100% okay with organizing with David Weissman. They don't want to organize with any conservative, they're the deplorable, but they will organize with David Weissman, though. We warn you about white liberals, and they are showing their entire ass. With that said, we show you guys David Weissman and Mark Hamill. Now we're going to show you guys George Takei. Now, ordinarily, these 3 people are the shit lib 3 horsemen, right? But dude, and I cannot believe I'm about to fucking say this, man.
Oh, no.
George Takei, with the only good take I've ever seen from this motherfucker. The only time George Takei
wow.
actually has a good take for the first time in the history of left independent media. Someone said that. So let me read his tweet, and then I'm gonna show you guys the absolute fucking meltdown that liberals had.
I didn't see this. I haven't seen this at all. I haven't seen this at all.
Yeah, I didn't want to warn you. I wanted to get you off guard with this. So George Takei said something rational for the first time in his life. The Israeli government has cut off food, water, and fuel to 2 million people inside Gaza. Collective punishment is not only contrary to international law, it is inhumane and illogical. How will this de-escalate the violence rather than radicalize many more? It's madness. Bro, the only thing that's madness is the fact that George Takei is tweeting something that based. When I first saw this, CJ, I thought that was a parody account. I swear to God, I was like, there's no way he fucking said that, because this is as base as it gets. So you want to know the response he got from fucking white liberals who follow him? Folding at the mouth, seething, white hot rage. This motherfucker got, well, he got a lot of tweets because he's George Takei. He always got good tweets. Yeah. He also got a lot of likes here because everyone on the left was like, wait, what? Like, motherfuckers was like, you see George Takei actually, so motherfuckers was liking it. So despite that, he did get like a mini ratio because he got 24,000 people replying to him. So there's 24,000 shit lived. There are seething angry, CJ, at George Takei take here. And this Andrew, Gaza could have spent their aid money to construct power plants and water treatment facilities. Instead, they built rockets. You read what you sow. That's from the Bible. Jesus fucking Christ. Guys, this is liberals calling for the fucking genocide of millions of people and justifying it. Liberals under George Takei tweet right now. This tweet got 3,000 likes where they say, hey, if you guys don't want to be a victim of siege warfare and our war crimes, maybe you guys should have better infrastructure. Now, what they're not telling you, CJ? Obviously.
They can't build no power plant inside of Gaza. Is he crazy? Go ahead. Israel's not going to allow that. Go ahead.
Yeah. And obviously, we all know Israel bombs any attempt of Gaza building independent infrastructure. In 2006, Israel destroyed the only self-sustaining power plant that they made in Gaza. So it's kind of weird, CJ, this whole two-state solution. How do you have two states when one state controls the flow of fuel, electricity, and food into the other one? That's a weird two-state solution, right? That's a weird, not apartheid state you have when one of them can fucking shut the fucking power out, and then liberals like Andrew apologize for it. And then they gaslight. Remember what I told you guys about debating Zionists? A lot of people don't do it because they would just straight up lie. They would say shit that's so psychopathic. In the middle of the debate, you'll get thrown off. Because honestly, dude, if I was debating Andrew and he said this shit, I'm like, nigga, wait, nigga, what? Like, it would be like a bad debate moment because I'll be so fucking caught off guard, so triggered. I would be like, how do I even respond to that?
Like now, this, like the babies being beheaded. He would have brought that up. You haven't seen the babies beheaded? You would have been like, what? You would have been like, caught off guard. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then you got to see when you get a second to compose yourself, and there's so many things are not possible in debate. I quickly debunked this literally in 5 seconds. I found this receipt of Israel now allowing that to happen. Let me show you just a few more responses. Obviously, I can't show you 24,000, but I've seen a few of them from liberals. This is someone on my timeline. I'm gonna have to agree with you, George, for one. Here, lefty. I'm trying to find some liberals because now you see more of my base timeline in here. I saw the tweet early. So I saw nothing but the shit lib unhinged views. So I want to see if I can find some more of them. And look, here's one of them. A line was crossed by Hamas and their allies. So because Palestinians fight back, now we are allowed to commit war crimes on them. That's what this liberal is saying. Let's continue. I wanted to debunk just a few of these live, just to show you how absolutely unhinged they are. Says the man who will be tossed from a rooftop if he's lived in Gaza. So if you guys don't know what they're saying here, they're saying that because a few Palestinians have anti-gay beliefs, we have the right to genocide them. And gay people shouldn't speak out against the genocide of Palestinian people because they have a different culture than we do. What do we call that, RB? And that's cultural imperialism. Liberals are using cultural imperialism right now to justify a genocide of the Palestinian people. I'll just read one more for sake time. I just wanted to debug a few in live time with you guys, just to show you guys how crazy they are. Because if you look at this tweet, if you're bored, find this tweet and look at the thousands upon thousands of unhinged liberals that are canceling George Takei because the one good take he ever had in his life. Here's another person spreading that lie. And every single one of these tweets, there's so many of these tweets in this thread that is spreading this lie that are being boosted by the thousands. There's another one that have over 1,000 likes. The other person who said this had 3,000 likes, where he said Hamas didn't build basic need infrastructure for their people with their foreign aid dollars. That is not fucking true. For one, Hamas is not necessarily the Palestinian government. Yes, a lot of Hamas people was elected, but you guys see how they connect Hamas with Palestinians? The Palestinians did attempt to build independent infrastructure, but whenever they did, it was bombed by the Israelis. So they are spreading lies to justify the genocide of the Palestinian people. So that last thing I'll share.
What I'm trying to find. Oh, I found the tweet because I just had to see it for myself, sir.
Yeah, go
Okay,
ahead. I'll pass to you, CJ. I'll pass to you if you want.
Yeah, I found this tweet, and because it's amazing. I do want to put it back up. Let me put it back up. I'm gonna
go ahead.
can't. Yeah, I'll put it back up.
If you want to read some the replies, it will forever kill the idea that Democrats are the lesser evil, that Democrats are somehow more measured and less unhinged than Trump supporters. No, there is no fucking difference. Democrats and liberals are just as evil as Marjorie Taylor Greene and their supporters. Anyway, CJ, go ahead.
I don't even think because I'm reading it. I don't even think he's even like saying this as a pro-Palestinian thing. He's just saying strategically, if you want to colonize these people, this is not the right way to do it. Like he's not really even on their side. It's just a good analysis. The analysis, his strategic analysis of being a colonial settler is just based because it looks at it from a humane point of view. That's all it is. And I'll read it again because the Israeli government has cut off food, water, and fuel to 2 million people in Gaza. Collective punishment is not only contrary to international law, it is inhumane and logical. So what George is doing here, Nick, is bringing up law and logic. Which is something that liberals don't want to hear nothing about. They don't want to hear nothing about your motherfucking mystical logic and your international laws. They don't want to hear that. Go ahead, Nick.
I'll pass it right back to you, but this is why I told you guys we're in a mass genocidal psychosis right now. To the point where George Takei said something that basic common sense, and he is getting canceled and destroyed by liberals and his own supporters for it.
Here goes some. So I have the advantage, Nick, since I haven't retweeted it. I probably can see more of just crazy
this is actually good. I want you to see it. I want you to see it.
Yeah, here goes Kaiser Bill. It said, he says.
Yeah, I read that one. I read that one.
Oh, you read this? Okay, so let me know.
That's the cultural imperialism one. And there's actually a lot of tweets like that in that same thread where they're like, man, you're a gay man. Why are you supporting Palestine? Anyway, go ahead, CJ.
Yeah. So that's the queer one you were talking about. How I guess if some people are against that, then that's justifiable. Here's one: Gaza could have. Oh no, this is this.
Yeah, I just read that one. Yeah, go down.
That's the one you just said.
Yeah. Here's Gassad. I didn't see this one.
Let's see this one, dear Mr. Ty. What are your thoughts about how gay people are treated in Gaza and the West Bank? Do you support their views on homosexuality? Should the Zionist entity seek to emulate those? I was just about to get to that. Those views, or are they more gay friendly in Tel Aviv? Go ahead, Nick. You were gonna say.
I really need you guys to understand that gay marriage is very much banned in Israel. By the way, very much so banned. So what you guys are saying is that we should support genocide of a people because of their cultural beliefs. And I'm sure that Gassad is like a libertarian right winger. Like he more like he like a right winger libertarian. He be into owning the libs kind of person, right? That's who he is. So you are using people's anti-gay beliefs to justify genocide. So what the fuck should people do to you guys in the United States that are passing anti-gay legislation? You guys, is this the argument you guys really want to fucking make? Because you guys are making an argument that my brother JB, and by inclusion us, because I'll be riding with that motherfucker, you guys are making an argument that JB should take up arms against Ron DeSantis and his MAGA movement in Florida, right? Using your argument. I'll let you continue, CJ.
Here's another one, Daniel Friedman. I must have missed the part where you condemned the murder of 1,000 civilians, the massacre of a music festival, the rape and murder of women and children, and the old people shot in the head for TikTok clout.
And I missed where you did that, Daniel, when the Palestinians were victims. They pretend that Palestinians were the first people that killed civilians. As I said before, Palestinians are imitating the rules of engagement that the Israelis set. So why do children die in the Palestinian conflict? Because Israel killed Palestinian children. So Palestinians like, all right, I guess that shit's on the table now. That shit's on the table. You guys are doing that. In what universe are people expected to handicap themselves in war? So if you're mad at Palestinians killing quote-unquote civilians and children, then you should be upset at the Israeli regime who set that term of engagement by killing way more Palestinian children. So I will return that question to Brian. Where's your outrage when Israel was killing children? Go ahead.
Yes, and this one right here is curious. Brian Sanders says Hamas didn't build. This is something you said earlier, so I'll read it and then read the second part. Hamas didn't build basic needs infrastructures for their people with all the foreign aid dollars they receive over the years. And apparently he got some pushback in his comments. So he says this, thinking about all the replies here, what solution can you dream up that would have allowed the free import of goods, bypassing blockade, into Gaza when the Hamas charter literally states they will kill Jews worldwide? What compromise is left? So this person is saying, oh, they didn't build this infrastructure. And then when people say, wait a minute, Israel's not going to let that happen. What do you mean, guys? And he says it's not happening because Hamas won't let it happen. Not because Israel is stopped. It's like, Nick, you have to literally go take your brain out of your head and go throw this shit away before you start. In order for you to fall for this sort of explanation of it. And if there's any other one, I'll see if there's one.
I would say this real quick in response to Brian, just real quick in response to Brian, where he said that Hamas and Palestinians said they want to kill all Jews. They do not say that. They absolutely do not say that. There have been many reporters of Jewish descent that went to Gaza in support of Palestinian people in revealing the Palestinian people. I don't want to misspeak because I know a few of them. I don't want to misspeak on who they are, but there are quite a few journalists who have Jewish descent who've been speaking out against the Palestinian issue. Did these Jewish journalists go into Gaza and get killed by the Palestinians because they were Jewish, CJ? No, absolutely not. So what Palestinians say, rightfully so, is that Zionists or anyone supporting the Zionist project, they are going to kill because they had the fucking right to. So you guys see how Zionists equate the two? Zionism do not equal Jewish heritage, Judaism. So when Palestinians say they want to kill all Zionists, as they should rightfully feel, they didn't turn that around and say, oh, they want to kill all Jews. That is not the fucking case. They don't want to kill Katie Halper. I use her because I know for a fact you talk about this all the time, how she's a Jew who supports Palestine. They don't want to kill Katie Halper. They want to kill all these Jewish people.
That'd be like saying slaves want to kill all white people because they want to kill their slave owner.
Yeah, we didn't want to kill John Brown. You know what I mean? You guys see how they twist it and make it a religious struggle and religious argument? But CJ, I'll pass it back to you if you have anything else you want to share. I'm going to save the rest of my feed for my next show because I had a hard exit here soon. But CJ, I'll pass to you for another story. If you
no, we've come to an end of the stories that we had listed today. Again, Nick, it's not that we're saying there's no more stories. We're just saying this is the stories that we're gonna cover for this stream, because it's literally we could go on for 5, 6, 7 hours. Literally, we could do probably a summit just on this with no planning. We could just probably go for hours just based on, because Nick, when I tell you, when I watch corporate media, and I haven't been able to watch it for 3 days,
I haven't been able to.
It is unbearable. I go to each station. I'm trying. Let me give it a chance. 2 minutes. I can't even get to 45 seconds. I'm like, this is just unbearable nonsense that's on corporate media. So there is a break. I guess I get a little break.
Yeah,
break
so this
from
is
it. Go ahead, Nick.
This is gonna be a busy week for RBN. So usually we do Nick and CJ Monday and Fridays, but we're gonna do Monday, Wednesday, Friday this week, just because shit's crazy. So
much. It's so much.
I need tomorrow to take a mental health day, and I was literally thinking about doing that today. And I'm being dead ass honest. Like, bro, I literally was struggling with this shit over yesterday. And you see this morning, bro, this morning, you guys see all my tweets. I seen like so many tweets this morning, bro. I was literally in my bed fucking dead, rage quitting. Like, this shit has been impacting me mentally in a way, guys. I can't have a hard time to describe. Like, me, CJ, and Rome, we've been through a lot of trauma in our lives, man. This shit is really fucking me up. So I almost took a day off today just because of that. But I'm gonna take tomorrow just to recharge. I need tomorrow off because this shit is fucking me up. But Friday we'll be back and we can we can do a proper game report. I'm brainstorming. I'm definitely gonna bring someone on. I don't know yet, CJ, but I'm thinking that maybe we have a two people on or so. I'm brainstorming that right now. Maybe Cameron missing someone else. I'm gonna bring that up here soon. But I'm thinking tomorrow. Go ahead, CJ.
In the future, because I know you have some connections on this topic of Israel, anyone from Max, Aaron, of course, we got to get Margaret. I don't know when we're going to be able to do that. We got to get Margaret and the Black Agenda Report on. I would love to talk to Jamu about it's just a ton of people, man. Lee Camp. I would love to talk to all of these people about these topics. So this is how it's going to be. Probably, I would think, Nick, at least next week we're probably going to be talking about this a little bit. There might be some other stories creeping up. But we still gonna be on this even next week.
It doesn't stop.
Yeah, we can get the super chats if you want and get out of here.
Yeah, just a few here. Thank you for the $2. I've been fucking everyone been getting on to it. I've been ratioing the show at all these Zionists, fam. Big shout out to Mac Blumenthal because that's another segment that I didn't even try to get to today. Cause we gotta react to Max Blumenthal on Tim Pool. Yeah, I had so many people that sent me the video like, bro, you guys, Max Blumenthal went on Tim Pool, held his ground, no flinch, and destroyed these motherfuckers. And I only watched 5 minutes of it. I didn't have a lot of time today because I had to prepare the show. I had to work out. I didn't even eat yet. That's why I'm fucking starving, so I didn't have a lot of time. So I watched maybe 5 minutes of it. I was like, man, this is gonna be good. So maybe Friday we can cover that video. I'm definitely gonna watch it. I'm definitely probably gonna cover it because I can't wait to see it. I've been rescuing all these motherfuckers because Zionists have no intellectual argument. I'm glad that Max did it. And Max is a much better choice than I am. There's Max is probably one of the best people to pick to go on the offensive against these Zionists. So I'm trying to ratio as many of them as I can. I took a lot of Zionist bodies the last 2 days and it could keep up because these motherfuckers can't debate me on this shit. And at the end of the day, I don't like debating Zionists either. Even though I could destroy them, I don't like debating them because how do you debate human rights? Like, even me debating genocide kind of legitimizes it, right? That's why Palestinians have a strict no debate Zionist policy. What am I going to do, debate that you can genocide me? It's the same thing. Do we debate Jim Crow? There's something that you just don't fucking debate, and Zionism is one of them. That's why I'm personally not interested in doing it. If someone challenged me, I probably might accept it, but I'm not looking for it because debating whether you should genocide someone or not is absurd. You know what I mean? You debate economics. You debate housing policy. You debate education. You don't debate whether fucking genocide should happen or not. Anyway, Max Blumenthal is the best fucking person to do it, though. I got to make sure I finish that. Thank you for the $10, Sim. Messer, I cannot figure out why some people find the genocide of the Palestinians by their occupiers funny. It's literally funny to see some of my left Whoa, what? It's literally funny to some of my left coworkers. The fact that anyone we find that shows that there's this people are going to be studying this mass psychosis that we're living in right now for a long time, CJ. For a long time. I have no words.
That is crazy.
I'm going to show you guys this quick. I'm actually kind of curious where it's at too. Because this is what I sent earlier today when I was talking about this. And this is my last real statement of the day. we almost had 5,000 likes. I just sent it not too long ago. Well, I said, we are witnessing a historic mass genocidal psychosis of the West right now. They want Russians dead, Chinese people dead, Iranians dead, North Koreans dead, the Venezuelans dead, and now they're actively cheering for the genocide of the Palestinian people. Facts be damned, history be damned, international law be damned. Siege warfare is a war crime, and they just say, fuck it, we don't care. And your friend laughing at the genocide of Palestinian people show you guys this psychosis in action. Excuse me. Last one, I appreciate the support. International law means nothing to the U.S. empire. Absolutely. And I cannot emphasize this enough. The only reason Israel has not been held accountable is because of the United States. And largely the UK, but mostly the United States. There have been countless proposals, often led by Russia and China, where they wanted to label Israel as an apartheid state, as a genocidal state, and they try to hold Israel accountable. There was many states like China and Russia that wanted to hold Israel responsible after they killed Shirin Abdul-Akleh. But you want to know who blocks every single one of them? Because in the UN, it takes only one country to veto these resolutions. So it's been the United States that have been vetoing accountability for Israel. Even some of these Western countries who are now cheering genocide, like France and Germany, even they supported resolutions to condemn Israel before. But it's been the United States blocking it with their one vote veto power. So I want you guys to repeat after me. I said in the beginning of the stream, the argument that we should be making instead of kowtowing to these motherfuckers like AOC, Bernie Sanders, and the entire progressive managerial classes, Palestinians have the legal right to resist their apartheid regime, in Israel as a country, as a nation, is not compliant with international law. CJ, there's only one group of people as a collective that is not compliant with international law, and that's Israel. You guys understand me? That's my last rant for today. It's gonna be one of those weeks, man. It's gonna be a rainy ass week for me.
Yeah, somebody made a comment and said we should do a summit on this, and maybe we won't do a summit, but maybe we can do it a mega stream where we do like a 4 or 5 hour stream. We bring on the Palestinian community network. We bring on like somebody like Saeed Muhammad. We bring on just a bunch of guests. We bring on Empire Files, Abby Martin. We bring on Max Blumenthal. We bring on all of these anti-imperialist sort of journalists. But I'm absolutely down with that to do
tomorrow. Probably. We're gonna do this on Friday. I'm sorry, CJ, but I would respond to that comment about.
Yeah, whenever we can do it. Yeah, I'm down. Whenever we can do it.
Yeah, the story with Lindsey Graham. We're gonna cover that Friday. I'm gonna cover John Kirby going on some CNN show. I didn't fact check to see the exact show yet, but he went on some show and he had this fucking breakdown. He had this mental breakdown about the death of Israeli citizens. Like the propaganda we're seeing right now is at historic levels. For one, you guys really want me to do you guys really believe that John Kirby, a guy who's been around and complicit with some of death and destruction, and just having random fucking mental breakdown, CJ, on the news of human death? And I'm talking about these people are surrounded by human death. They talk about human death. They've seen human death. They see classified information that we haven't seen. But this guy having a random breakdown on cable news about the death of Israelis. Get the fuck out of here. So we're gonna cover that. We'll cover that on Friday. I can't spoil my intro on that. But on Friday, I'm gonna cover that segment and many more. I didn't even try to get through all the receipts today because there's no way. So we're gonna do 3 Nick and CJ this week. We did special Wednesday edition. I'll be back on Friday. CJ, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, being part of the establishment empire, you have a specialty. John Kirby have a specialty. Yeah. Do you know what they all have? The ability to act.
Yeah,
and that's what you saw with John Kirby. The ability, you see with AOC, the ability to act. You know, when she went down to the ICE facilities and she was crying, all that stuff, and now she's just hopping and skipping, doing a George Jefferson now. So it's just the ability to just flip on that emotion when it's time, and you're seeing it collectively because you see. I've never seen them report on so much civilian casualties. It's like Do you not know all of the civilian casualties in Ukraine, all the civilian casualties in Afghanistan? Like you report on all the civilian casualties, but Western civilian casualties, and it's so blatant. But that's my last word. I don't think we have any other super chats.
Yeah.
And we're gonna be back Monday. We'll try to put together. I don't know if we'll call it a
Friday?
summit, a Palestinian summit, but we're trying to put together a mega with a bunch of guests on.
Yeah.
And then you said, what about Friday? Go ahead.
Are you joining Friday, or are we doing? I don't know. We doing Friday?
Yeah,
But-
we could do Friday.
yeah,
I'm gonna
we
take
do- yeah,
tomorrow
so-
off too.
Yeah.
I'm gonna take
take
tomorrow
tomorrow.
off, so, yeah.
Stabby and JB tomorrow. So we got Stabby and JB tomorrow. So we will have content for the channel. I got a text now, so I see my hotspot video is ready, so that should be posted here soon. Keep an eye out for that. So I'm gonna cover how AOC sold out the DSA. Also, quickly cover how everyone's freaking out about Rashid Tlaib. So keep an eye out for that video. So CJ, I'll let you send this out. Any last announcements? And I'll see you guys on Friday.
This is the last super chat. All right, Nick, I will see you on Friday. It says PMC real estate people in Atlanta, Georgia. That's where. That's answering a question that we were kind of posing earlier. So thank you for that super chat. I guess I can shout this out. This is our merchandise store. So if you're interested in any of our merchandise, we got 11 designs. Those 11 designs can be purchased on a mug, on a tote bag, on a sweater, a t-shirt, sweatshirt, hoodie, and so on. And you get things like this. You could get different colors if you want. That's the gray. Then you got the powder blue there, and then you got the yellow. Abolish the police. This is one of the graphics. You can go close, zoom into the graphic to see what the image is. So check it out. That's on our website. I will put our website on the screen if I could find it. Oh, right here. That's where you find it. All right, and now we're gonna close out with a video. And just more on just the backstory and back information, more receipts sort of on what's happening in Palestine. So let's share that video, and we're going to close out with that. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This was a very informative stream. Make sure you hit that like button on your way out, and also make sure you join our Substack so you get notifications when we go live. We are planning to be off tomorrow, and I say plan just in case if there's some major crazy news that dropped, then of course. But if not, tomorrow will be Sabby and JB show, and then Friday will be the Nick and CJ show back again. Hopefully we can get a couple of guests round up for this Friday. But other than that, thank you for watching.
For decades, Israel has continued bombing and blockading and occupying Palestinian territory, displacing Palestinians, bulldozing their homes, starving them. This has gone on for decades with no consequences because, of course, anytime there's a resolution in the UN Security Council, which actually has teeth that could be used to take action against the Israeli apartheid regime, well, the U.S. always uses its veto power in the Security Council, protecting Israel. So this is why, despite the fact that international law clearly states that Israel is constantly violating international law on a daily basis, there are no consequences. And this is also why Palestinians have resorted to armed resistance, which they have a legal right to, according to international law, because they have exhausted all other means of resistance. Anytime they try a peaceful protest, we saw what happened in 2018 in the Great March of Return, where hundreds of Palestinians were killed by Israeli snipers, where medics and journalists were intentionally shot by Israeli snipers. When they try to protest peacefully, that's Israel's response, is killing them. So naturally, they end up turning to armed struggle. And just as the Algerian people had a legal right to armed struggle against French colonialism during the Algerian War of Independence, just as the Indian people had a right to armed struggle against British colonialism, and there were attacks on the British Empire led by Indian revolutionaries like the leftist Bhagat Singh, a martyr who died for the cause of trying to free the Indian people from British colonialism. Just as the South African people had a legal right to armed resistance against Dutch colonialism and the apartheid regime, so too, according to international law, do Palestinians have a legal right to armed resistance. This is exactly why so many leaders of the anti-apartheid struggle in South Africa have strongly supported Palestine and condemned Israel's treatment of Palestinians as apartheid. And this is back in 2014, when it was still more controversial then. I mean, it shouldn't be controversial. It should never have been controversial. But Desmond Tutu, a significant leader in the South African anti-apartheid struggle, he said Israel is guilty of apartheid in the treatment of Palestinians. And this is someone who won the Nobel Peace Prize, which, I mean, so did Henry Kissinger, so did Barack Obama, and he, waged war in numerous countries. So just because you get the Nobel Peace Prize doesn't really mean that much. But for people who care about that, this is someone who is a Nobel Peace Prize laureate. And as the Jerusalem Post newspaper reported, which is very anti-Palestinian, this is a pro-Israel newspaper, Desmond Tutu, the noted civil rights leader who became the first Black Archbishop of Cape Town, compared Israel's treatment of the Palestinians to the apartheid regime that discriminated against Blacks in his native South Africa. He said, quote, "I have witnessed the systemic humiliation of Palestinian men, women, and children by members of the Israeli security forces." He said, quote, "Their humiliation is familiar to all Black South Africans who were corralled and harassed and insulted and assaulted by the security forces of the apartheid government." Tutu declared his support for the use of boycotts and economic sanctions in order to compel Israel to alter its policies. Quote, "In South Africa, we could not have achieved our democracy without the help of people around the world who, through the use of non-violent means, such as boycotts and divestment, encouraged their governments and other corporate actors to reverse decades-long support for the apartheid regime." Quote, "The same issues of inequality and justice today motivate the divestment movement trying to end Israel's decades-long occupation of Palestinian territory and the unfair and prejudicial treatment of the Palestinian people by the Israeli government ruling over them." So this is him supporting the BDS movement, boycott, divestment, and sanctions. And Tutu said, "Those who turn a blind eye to injustice actually perpetuate injustice. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor." The most famous anti-apartheid leader, Nelson Mandela, who was the first president of South Africa after ending the apartheid regime, he also made very similar comments in support of Palestine. He openly supported the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO, and Mandela said, quote, "We identify with the PLO because just like ourselves, they are fighting for the right of self-determination." He specifically praised Yasser Arafat, who was the leader of the PLO. And Mandela said, quote, "Arafat is a comrade in arms and we treat him as such." And then in a 1997 speech on the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people, Mandela said, quote, "We know too well that our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinians." And by the way, I should point out that Mandela was imprisoned for 27 years by the South African apartheid regime, and the CIA played a key role in his arrest. In fact, the CIA gave intelligence to the South African apartheid regime, which was used in order to imprison him. So the US played the key role in imprisoning Nelson Mandela. And why? Because one, Mandela refused to oppose armed struggle. He said that the people of South Africa, Black people, have a legal right to armed resistance against the racist apartheid regime. And despite being tortured and imprisoned for 27 years, he never condemned that legal right to armed resistance, which is how ultimately the apartheid regime ended, along with